The story kicks off in a remote spot with a beautiful mountainous landscape. Inside, a man known as Master Musan asks a young man if he wants to hear about Wei Yanho. The young man immediately confirms, saying he's gathering information to document his story. The master then opens his fan and mentions Wei Yanho's full title, the Radiant Martial Sovereign. He begins to describe him as a benevolent and just man, someone Buddha himself must have sent to them. Satisfied, the young man jots everything down and asks what Wei Yanho was like in his day-to-day life. However, just thinking about his daily behavior makes Master Musan start shaking uncontrollably. Suddenly, the master's expression changes completely, and he says he can't do this anymore. The young man is left completely confused and startled by the old man's sudden reaction. Cutting away, the same young man is seen getting thrown out of the Pain clan of Hubei. Inside, the Supreme Elder Pain Dejuk is furious, screaming Wei Yanho's name. He then asks why a despicable human like the young man even came to their clan, and he even orders his servants to bring a bag of salt and spread it all over the entrance. Despite all this, Wei Yanho is known as the Radiant Martial Sovereign, a legendary figure. Some call him the greatest of all time, while others call him the greatest warrior of all. Running through the forest, the young historian wonders why everyone avoids talking about Wei Yanho. But as a historian, he feels it's his duty to uncover the truth. His job is to document even the hidden sides of history with determination. Arriving at an abandoned camp, he believes he's finally about to find out why. There, he finds an old man from the Beggars sect, known as the Divine Mad Dog, who just laughs in his face. The young man explains he was kicked out of the other clans, and got the same reaction everywhere. The Divine Mad Dog then says with a grin that, of course, they'd react that way. Confused, the young man doesn't understand why that would be a normal reaction. So, the old man begins to tell a story from 100 years ago, in the Wei clan of Guangdong. He reveals that Wei Yanho was the worst kind of person to ever exist, as we see our guy waking up. At 12 years old, our protagonist already had a very clear goal in his mind. He was a boy who dreamed of becoming the greatest and strongest under the heavens. Having been born into a martial clan, he was raised learning the ways of chivalry. Because of this, he already knew the fastest way to reach the top. And that path was relentless effort and a ton of hard training. Our hero, lying in bed, reflects that no matter how talented someone is, nothing comes without effort. However, for a boy with so much determination, there was one tiny problem with his thinking. And that problem is that he'd rather stare at the sunset from his bedroom window than actually get up and put all that philosophy into practice. So, after a moment's thought, our guy simply throws himself back into bed. He laments that today was supposed to be the day to start training but decides to leave it for tomorrow. Later, an older man enters the room and finds our protagonist sleeping on the floor. He tries to wake the boy up, telling him to get up, but it's no use. Losing his patience, the old man yells for him to get up immediately. Finally, our hero wakes up and realizes someone is in his room. This man is Wei Junghan, the clan patriarch, who asks if he knows what time it is. Our guy replies that he saw the sun, so he kept lying down since the sun was also setting. Annoyed, Jianghan asks how long he's been locked up in that room. Our protagonist guesses that maybe it's been 2 or 3 days max. But Jianghan explodes with rage, yelling that it's been 4 days since he wrapped himself in a blanket. Jianghan continues to scream, asking if his back doesn't hurt from lying down so much. Our guy then replies with a smile that he gets up every now and then, so there's nothing to worry about. The patriarch becomes furious with that answer and lunges at our protagonist without a second thought. Yanho still tries to explain, saying he really tried to train but the sun was already setting. And he adds that when the sun sets, you have to sleep to wake up early and train the next day. With no more patience, Jianghan says he's going to fix that rotten attitude of his. That day, in the great house of the Wei clan, the father's shouts echoed as the sun went down. Later, in the clan office, Jianghan sighs, frustrated with the situation. Administrator Zhou Bang enters and asks if he's worried about the second young master again. Jianghan confirms and Zhou Bang tries to calm him down, saying not to worry, that he'll mature eventually. But the patriarch covers his face with his hands and says this is all his fault. The story then reveals that Jianghan left on a dueling pilgrimage when Yanho was 2 years old. He left behind his wife, Han Sang-ah, and their 3 children, including little Yanho. At the time, he thought the journey would last 2 years at most, but he got caught up in several incidents. Because of that, he only managed to return home 8 years later than planned, despite earning the title of righteous and chivalrous swordsman. During his travels, what Jianghan lost in that time was far greater than any honor he could receive, because when he returned, his once gentle wife had become fiercer than a tiger. And his beloved son, who he thought would be no trouble at all, had grown up to become a real sloth who just wanted to sleep all day. Back in the present, Jianghan takes a deep breath, completely exhausted from dealing with the situation. But Zhou Bang tries to cheer him up, telling him not to worry because there must still be a way. The administrator then reminds the patriarch that we'll be returning soon, leaving Jonghyun confused. Suddenly, Jonghyun remembers and gets excited, because after 3 years, he'll finally be back from the academy. With a mischievous grin on his face, he already starts planning what to do with that lazy kid. Meanwhile, our hero feels a sudden shiver and wonders why he's getting the chills. He glances to the side suspiciously but sees nothing out of the ordinary, and this person he fears so much is Sanho, his older brother, who emerges from the shadows. Sanho asks how long he's been sleeping, and our guy stammers in fear, wanting to know when he arrived. But Sanho ignores the question and with a serious look says he asked first, putting pressure on his brother. Our guy gets all awkward and tries to scratch his head to hide his nervousness. But the death glare from his brother Sanho shows he's not buying any of it. So, in a panic, our hero makes up a story that he trained a lot and was just taking a nap. Sanho doubts the story, but Yeonho insists that he was really training. To test him, his brother points to a candle and challenges him to slice it in two with a technique. He wants to see how much our guy has improved in the last 3 years he's been away. A bit awkwardly, our protagonist stands up with his sword in hand and faces the candle. With his arms crossed, Sanho hurries his brother along, telling him to get on with it. Yeonho still tries to stall, saying it might be dangerous to do this indoors. But his brother yells that he'll handle the danger, and tells him to show what he's got. With no more excuses, our hero takes a deep breath and prepares for the worst. He runs toward the candle, his sword glowing with a blue aura. Holding the sword firmly, he concentrates all his strength for the attack. His foot plants itself on the ground with full force, showing he's not messing around, and with a swift and precise movement, our guy finally strikes the candle with everything he's got. Using his ascending dragon technique, our guy attacks with a powerful blow. However, to his surprise, the candle remains completely intact after the attack. He immediately panics, realizing he's messed up again. Sanho then comments coldly that 3 long years have passed. According to him, 3 years is enough time to master a technique. But our hero managed the feat of getting even worse than before. Changing scenes, the family gathers for a dinner that seems pretty tense. Our protagonist already predicts he's going to get indigestion from the atmosphere. Then, Jonghyun asks his eldest son how life at the academy was. Sanho replies that hardships are essential for self-improvement. The patriarch is proud and says he suffered a lot in his absence. Afterwards, Sanho asks if there are any other problems to solve at home. And with a serious look, he states that there is, in fact, only one problem. His parents then get curious and ask what this problem could be, and the topic is Yeonho who chimes in, wanting to know what it is. With a serious expression, our hero watches the scene, not understanding a thing. Then Sanho suggests that they need to take Yeonho to his martial academy. Our guy is completely shocked by the idea and is left speechless. The story returns to the present, with the mad dog explaining that even masters grind their teeth at the sound of Yeonho's name. And it was at that moment that our protagonist's grand journey began. Despite being just a lazy kid at the time, he had no idea what awaited him, because no one could have imagined that this boy would one day shake the entire world. During the trip, our hero begs his brother to stop for a little rest. And that's how he was pretty much forced to go to the martial academy. His family was a bit upset by his sudden departure. His younger sister Wee Suryeon cried, asking him not to leave. But even though they were sad, they didn't try to stop him from going his way. At the farewell, Yeonho shouts that he'll be back and his family waves goodbye. The journey was smooth and without many problems along the way. At least, it was smooth for Sanho, since our guy was suffering on top of the horse. Completely worn out on the horse, our guy asks if they're there yet. But his brother Sanho replies that there are still 10 days of travel left, leaving him shocked. Sanho then complains that they would have arrived in 5 days if Yeonho knew how to ride a horse. Our protagonist gets tired of being carried and yells that his back and his butt are gonna explode. Trying to get a break, he points to some people standing up ahead and says they're resting. Suddenly, Sanho's expression changes and he becomes alert at the sight. Without a second thought, he rushes toward the group, and our guy asks where he's going. Sanho then replies in a serious voice that they've arrived too late. As he gets closer, he realizes that all those people are already lifeless on the ground. Our hero is completely terrified by the scene and starts screaming in fear. Sanho then approaches one of the bodies to show his brother something. On the man's chest is a strange mark that looks like a red flower with black veins. He explains that this is a technique known as the indulgent flower palm. The original name was the crimson flower palm, but it was changed because of a disgusting criminal. Our guy then realizes the danger and asks if that criminal is nearby. Sanho then deduces that, in other words, there's a woman in danger nearby. He dashes off at high speed and tells our guy to wait there. Our hero panics and yells, asking if he's supposed to stay with the bodies. But it's too late. His brother disappears over the horizon, leaving him behind, completely alone in the middle of nowhere. Our protagonist is left not knowing what to do. On top of that, the situation gets even more tense with the bodies and the horses right there. With a nervous smile and breaking out in a cold sweat, our guy realizes he's screwed. To make matters even worse, the weather starts to turn, and the sky darkens quickly. He then complains about how long his brother is taking, and that he should have taken him along. However, worry sets in, and he wonders if something happened to Sanho. Afraid of becoming tiger food, our hero decides he needs to do something. Suddenly, a noise startles our guy and puts him on high alert. And to top it all off, a very heavy rain starts to pour down relentlessly. Looking up, he can only think that he's really screwed. Soaked to the bone and cold, he wonders how he ended up in this situation. Desperate, our guy tries to move the bodies with the horse under the heavy rain. He doesn't want to leave the bodies behind, but he can't bury them either. So, with all his strength, he decides he needs to find shelter immediately. But the horse isn't in the mood to cooperate and starts to get agitated. Our protagonist gets angry and asks why the animal isn't obeying him. Suddenly, a lightning strike spooks the horse, which ends up throwing our hero far away. In mid-fall, he lets out a scream of pure desperation, not knowing what to do. He then tumbles down the hill, hitting everything in his path until he finally stops. All broken and exhausted, he lies there on the ground with no strength to get up. After a while, he sits up and complains about the pain in his back, blaming the horse. Then he lifts his head and notices something strange right in front of him. To his surprise, he ended up falling right at the entrance of a dark cave. With a grin from ear to ear, our guy celebrates finding shelter. Soon after, the horses also appear at the cave entrance to take cover. Our protagonist then ties the horses with a rope so they don't run away again. Inside the cave, our hero looks at the horses and complains that he can't even hit them. He then grumbles that this is why he prefers to stay at home, safe and comfortable. At least he left a mark outside so his brother can find him more easily. Meanwhile, he turns and looks into the darkness of the cave, unsure of what to do. Totally exhausted, he gives up on thinking and just throws himself on the ground to sleep. But soon he worries about Sanho, hoping nothing bad has happened. However, he calms himself down, remembering that his brother is very strong and will be fine. With that in mind, our guy relaxes and slowly starts to drift off. And just like that, he's out like a light, having a deep and peaceful sleep in the cave. Suddenly, a mysterious blue aura starts to emanate from his body as he sleeps. This same blue energy then envelops his entire body as if it were a cocoon. The aura then floats out of the cave and disappears into the darkness of the night. After some time, our hero finally wakes up, a bit confused and drowsy. He looks around and realizes he's in a completely different place. He then wonders where he is, as the ceiling looks totally new and strange. He recognizes the place as the same cave and wonders if he rolled to the back of it. Suddenly, a mysterious voice calls him Human of Destiny, and he gets spooked. He falls to the ground and looks around, trying to figure out where that voice came from. The voice then welcomes the successor to its radiant sword. Our guy points to a sphere of light and asks if it's the one talking. The sphere confirms, saying it has transcended the constraints of a physical being. Terrified, our hero yells that it's a ghost and tries to protect himself. But the voice calms him down, saying it has already passed on and only its will remains there. It then explains that it prepared this place for whoever came after it. Our protagonist thinks for a moment and realizes the situation is quite familiar. A cave with no human presence, an old ghost, and an inheritance. He then remembers the stories he's heard and gets all excited. With his eyes sparkling, he realizes this is his fated opportunity. Overjoyed, our guy thanks the heavens for rewarding his kindness. And he even says he won't even need to go to the academy if he gets strong right here. The voice says there's no time to waste, and that he must inherit its sword and train nonstop. Furthermore, the sphere of light comments that he must be talented enough, having its blood. However, the voice reveals that he'll need to train for 30 years to replicate its techniques. The ghost confirms that it's only 30 years, but our hero cuts him off right there. With a smile on his face, he says this destiny wasn't for him and tells the ghost to find someone else. The sphere of light is completely shocked by the response and can't believe it, because our guy would rather let this chance slip by than be stuck there for 30 years. The scene cuts back to the mad dog, who says that this encounter was what changed everything, because that's how the loser Wei Yanho gained so much power, and became one of the strongest warriors to have ever existed in the entire world. Back in the cave, our protagonist says goodbye and tells the ghost to find another person. He then turns and starts running to get out of that place as fast as possible. Desperate, the voice yells for him to wait a moment, and our hero stops to listen. Suddenly, the sphere of light transforms into an old ghost named Baek Muhan. Our guy then points at him and shouts that he was right and that he's a scammer. Baekmuhan gets furious with the accusation, and our guy says he tried to trick him. However, the ghost explains that he wasn't pretending and is a spirit that has left its body. Our hero then crosses his arms, a bit suspicious of this spirit story. To test it, he tries to punch the old man, but his hand goes right through the ghost as if it were air. Baekmuhan stands still while our guy falls to the ground, not understanding a thing. Realizing he's a real ghost, our protagonist totally panics. Yeonho then explains that this is a spirit transmission art, which they call a ghost. The old ghost explodes with anger and yells that he is not a ghost in any way, shape, or form. The scene then cuts back to the present with the mad dog and the historian in front of the campfire. The old beggar then reveals that this was exactly how Yeonho met his master. The historian gets curious and asks if the spirit transmission art really exists. The mad dog confirms that it's a technique only the highest level martial artists can use. So, the young man asks who this martial artist capable of using such a rare skill could be. The beggar builds up the suspense and asks if he happens to know the Sword Emperor. The young man says yes and describes him as the strongest in history, the great master of the Baek clan. The mad dog then confirms that he's talking about Baekmuhan, the radiant sword. Shocked, the historian remembers that this master lived 300 years ago. Despite that, the old man explains that he was the one who turned Yeonho into what he is today, but he reveals that it was actually the other way around from what the historian was thinking, because it was the Sword Emperor who needed a disciple and begged him to accept. However, our guy didn't care at all and said he was leaving since he wasn't from the Baek clan. Baekmuhan then gets angry and says he won't let him leave that easily, and using his powers he seals the cave exit with a massive stone gate. Our protagonist looks up, not understanding what just happened. The ghost then laughs and says he'll never break that with his current skills, but he offers to teach our hero his martial arts so he can cut through the stone. Seeing he has no other choice, our guy sighs and grabs his sword, ready to fight. Baekmuhan still yells that he can't cut the gate with his current strength. However, our protagonist simply starts digging the ground, leaving the old man confused. When the ghost asks what he's doing, our hero replies that he's digging a hole. Our hero then says he'll break the stone in a year or two, because it'll wear down. Baekmuhan is shocked by the boy's stubbornness, and can't believe what he's hearing. And our guy even mocks him, saying it's funny to hear that from someone who talked about 30 years. Desperate, the ghost tries to negotiate and says he'll let him out in 20 years. But our protagonist replies that it's too long and he'd only consider it if it were 3 years. The old man freaks out, saying not even a legend could learn his arts in just 3 years. So our hero simply gives up and says it wasn't meant to be. Baekmuhan turns purple with rage, grinding his teeth, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, our guy stops digging and proposes a new deal: 5 years. The ghost accepts immediately and promises to make him the strongest in the world in 5 years. Now the offer seems interesting, and our protagonist starts to think about it. Moreover, he notices he's never heard of a spirit as vivid as this one. That's why he suspects the old man might really be the strongest master in the world, coming to the conclusion that 5 years is a cheap price to become a master. Finally, our hero points at the ghost and accepts the training with a smile. The mad dog then explains that Yeonho didn't know that was the Sword Emperor, because the person the master found at the end of his life was precisely our lazy guy. That's why Baekmuhan yells for him to wake up, but our hero only gets up with great reluctance. He even complains that he's tired and that humans need sleep, unlike ghosts. Baekmuhan curses the heavens in anger but quickly apologizes so they can train. After all, the disciple he got at the end of his life was a tremendous slacker. The ghost complains that at this rate, it would take 50 years, and our guy still asks for an easier way. Our protagonist then grumbles that he needs to find a talented master, just to annoy him, and this makes Baekmuhan so furious that if he had a body, he would have had a heart attack. The old ghost laments his desire to pass on his arts, as it trapped him in this situation. He just wished he had a body to deal with the boy who was laughing and rolling on the floor. Suddenly, our hero stops laughing and asks the master how he did that. He wants to know how the stone gate was closed and if the ghost can teach him. But Baekmuhan says he just pulled the rope of a device he made himself, and reveals that he used levitation to pull the rope with only his QI. Suddenly, Baekmuhan freaks out and yells for not realizing something sooner. With a crazy laugh, the ghost scares our guy, who asks if he's gone mad. He explains that thanks to Yeonho, he learns something new about his spirit power. Our protagonist doesn't even understand what he's talking about, and is soon hit by something. He gets scared seeing a rock floating toward him, coming from the ghost. The old man then says that thanks to our guy, he realized he can move rocks. And if he can move rocks, then he can do much more with his power. Soon several rocks start floating around the ghost, who seems very excited. Seeing the situation, our hero panics and calls him master, to try and calm him down. But it's too late, and Baekmuhan begins the forced training his own way. From that day on, the training continued nonstop, day and night, in the cave. During the day, our protagonists learned swordsmanship the hard way. At night, they debated martial arts and their philosophies. And whenever he slept, he used the mythical dream arts to train even more. With all this training, his life became the sword itself, and he evolved greatly. His life became one with the sword, and he trained endlessly, cutting rocks. With the Ghost Master on his case, our hero no longer had time for laziness. And that's exactly how 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. When the training finally came to an end, it was time to return to the world. Our guy then approaches the stone gate to finally leave the cave. And upon leaving, he was ready to shake the world with his new power. But one day before that, the master was calling for Yeonho, who was sleeping exhaustedly. Our protagonist wakes up all beat up and complains that he wanted to sleep just a little longer. However, he notices that his master's expression is very different from usual. Then Baekmuhan calls him for one last very serious talk. Not understanding what's happening, our hero sits down in front of the ghost. The old man begins to tell him that his only hope in life was to see the end of martial arts. That's why he only focused on that and became a grumpy old man who was alienated from everyone. Our guy finds it all very strange, as his master was never one to talk like this. The ghost then reflects that it was obvious why his clan never came looking for him. He continues, saying he abandoned his family for martial arts. However, the old ghost admits with a sad look that he was wrong, because martial arts are made by humans and are meaningless without people. Our guy is surprised when the master says it was he who helped him realize this. Baekmuhan then reflects that it was the first time in his life he had ever taught someone. And as much as he got very angry and irritated during the training, he also felt the happiness and joy of seeing our protagonist evolve. And besides that, he learned what it was to have a special affection for someone. Our hero gets worried and asks why he's acting like it's a farewell. The master then confirms that it is and says that unfortunately, it's time. Yeonho gets angry and thinks it's some kind of trick from the old ghost. He yells that only 5 years have passed, and that the master needs to stay for another 25, but Baekmuhan simply confirms what he said and asks what's the big deal. He then explains that the QI he gave our guy isn't easy to maintain. That's why his power has run out, and he says it's time to say a real goodbye. Our guy then yells and asks why the master didn't tell him the truth before. However, Baekmuhan doubts he would have come back but says he understands how he feels. The old ghost then begins to prepare for his final farewell. He says he really enjoyed the time they spent together in that cave. And with a serene look, he has a vision of his disciple's future. He can already see our hero traveling the world as a great warrior. That's why he advises the boy to see the world and keep it all inside him. And also to see people so he doesn't make the same mistakes he did. The ghost then says that even if no one knows of his existence, he will live on forever through our guy's swordsmanship and movements. As he fades away, he says it's okay even if Yeonho isn't perfect. Desperate, our protagonist begs his master not to go yet, and he asks for a little more time, even if it's just for one more day. But the master's last words are just a wish for him to be happy. Thus our hero is left alone in the cave, calling for his master one last time. With tears in his eyes, our hero complains that his master could have warned him sooner. The story returns to the present, with our protagonist furious for being tricked. He then realizes his master left something written on his clothes before he left. The message was actually an evil plan to ensure he would keep training. To sum it up, Baekmuhan knew the boy would get lazy again. So, he placed a special feature in our hero's body to prevent that. This feature was an internal elixir that automatically improved his martial arts. However, if our guy's training was slower than the elixir's speed, all his internal energy would be sucked away by the ghost, and he would end up kicking the bucket. Basically, he'd meet his end if he got lazy with training, which made him furious. The master also advised him to travel the world to learn and feel new things. With tears in his eyes, our hero curses his master but understands his message. His first mission was to go to Rulin and find the world's greatest scholar. And after Rulin, the master left a huge list of places for him to visit. Our guy then stretches and decides he'll go home after taking care of everything. With determination, our hero says he needs to do what has to be done. He then kneels in respect for his master and the journey that awaits him. Despite being annoyed with the old man's plan, he knows he won't go back on it. As he walks, he wonders where this Rulin place his master talked about is. In the cave, Baekmuhan's spirit appears with a very malevolent laugh. He laughs, thinking the boy will wither away if he doesn't learn about the world. He couldn't let his disciple live in some random place in the middle of nowhere. The world is too big and vast to let him waste his potential. And besides, it would be a waste of his martial arts on that kid. But in the end, he feels happy and wishes for our guy to be happy too. Our protagonist then smells the scent of grass and realizes he's out of the cave. Time passes and he finally arrives in a city called Kaifeng. Completely worn out from the journey, he asks a man if this place is really Kaifeng. The man is Jang Il, the leader of a branch of the beggars sect, and he's shocked by our hero's appearance, asking who this mummy is. Our hero then says he came because he needs to ask something, and the man wants money. Jang Il notices that his voice sounds young, but his face looks like an old man's. He then says they are both beggars, but our guy gets offended by the comparison. Our protagonist yells, asking how he could possibly look like a beggar like that, but the man says if he doesn't have money, then he can't help him at all. Jang Il then compliments his appearance and says he would make a lot of money begging. After thinking for a moment, he gets excited about an idea he just had. He then grabs our hero's hand and asks if he wants to work with him. Our protagonist understands the plan and soon gets a bunch of coins for the man. Jang Il celebrates that in half a day, he made enough for 6 months of branch expenses. The news spreads, and everyone starts calling our hero the god of wealth. Satisfied with the result, Jang Il finally asks what he wanted to know. Our guy then asks for a list of locations, hobbies, and specialties of famous scholars and blacksmiths. And the list goes on with more and more requests, leaving the beggar completely shocked. Despite the shock, he promises to help and tells our hero to come back in 7 days. Jang Il agrees to let him stay, but a few days later, he bitterly regrets it. One of the beggars comes running, saying their sect is in big trouble. He then yells that they're all going to starve to death, and the leader is confused. It turns out that the other beggars from the sect were being kicked off the streets. Jang Il runs to see what's happening and doesn't understand the situation at all. Arriving there, he's completely shocked by the scene he finds. People were complaining that if you're going to be a beggar, you have to do it in style. And the reason for this was our hero, who was getting all the money from the people. Jang Il gets totally desperate seeing that our guy stole his business. And so, our protagonist dominates the world of beggars with his unique appearance. After a day's work, he complains that he's thirsty and wants to drink water. Jang Il then orders one of his men to bring him water as fast as possible. But our guy complains that the bowl is dirty and throws the water out immediately. And he even demands they bring cold water straight from the mountains for him to drink. While our hero relaxes, the leader of the beggars trembles with rage, unable to do anything. Jang Il complains that even though he's a branch leader, he has to serve that stupid beggar, but he knows that if he kicks our hero out, all his men will starve. Meanwhile, he wonders when the information he asked for will arrive. Suddenly, one of the beggars comes running and shouting that the information has finally arrived. Jang Il is super relieved and takes the opportunity to give our guy a relaxing message. He then hands over a package with the information to our protagonist, who analyzes it. Our hero asks if that's all, and the beggar is confused by his reaction. Jang Il takes the paper and hands it to our guy, who stares at it with disdain. He then starts reading the list of information he managed to gather for him, and he soon gets furious when he realizes it's only half of what he asked for. Seeing the leader's reaction, our guy asks if it was because he didn't pay enough. Jang Il then decides he needs to act fast before the kid gets angry. He drags our protagonist through the city streets in search of a solution. Arriving at a fancy place, he promises he'll get the information one way or another. Inside they find Gui Nang Nang, the leader of the House X branch in Kaifeng. Jang Il greets leader Guy, but our guy keeps repeating her name, Nang Nang. He then scoffs at the title and asks if her name is really Nang Nang, like what a baby would say. Our protagonist keeps teasing the leader, and the beggar is dying of embarrassment. Gui Nang Nang finds the visit strange since the two sects are declared rivals. Jang Il explains that he's not there for the sect, but is bringing a special client. The leader gets annoyed and asks if he's pulling her leg. She then wonders why his client would be some random beggar. Guy Nang Nang takes offense and says they don't sell information to the beggar's sect. Our hero then butts in and says he's not from the beggar's sect. The leader warns that she'll take action if they continue with the insults. Suddenly, our protagonist asks if the House sect isn't an intelligence organization. He then says she doesn't even know if he's from the beggar's sect, and that she lacks the basics. Gui Nang Nang calls her servant Gongmu to deal with them. She then asks who that man is who's causing all the trouble. The servant replies that he doesn't know but confirms he's not from the beggar's sect. Our hero then asks if she can sell him the information now. However, Guy Nang Nang refuses the offer with a smile and tells them both to leave. Our protagonist lets out a mocking laugh and isn't fazed by the refusal. He then says she has no business sense and that the House sect will soon go under. The leader turns around, annoyed by the young man's audacity as he continues to provoke her. He even calls her an old lady and says he's not wrong about anything he said. Guy Nang Nang explodes with rage at being called an old lady, and her face contorts. Our guy then plays dumb and asks if she's being insulted. With no more patience, the leader calls her servant Gongmu and tells him to teach the boy a lesson. The servant obeys and lunges at our hero with a very quick attack. Jang-il tries to warn our protagonist, but it's too late for anything. However, our hero simply shoves him aside and tells him to get out of the way. With a quick movement, he prepares to attack the servant with full force. The blow generates a wave of energy that sends the servant flying and destroys everything around. Gongmu falls defeated to the ground, and everyone is shocked to see that our guy is a master. Our hero then says it's just his instinct to attack anyone who attacks him. Jang-il thinks that he expected him to be strong, but he never imagined this much. He then concludes that our guy is basically a monster in human disguise. Leader Gui changes her tone and says she didn't know he was such a prestigious client. With a serious look, she turns and begins to analyze the situation more calmly. She then says it doesn't seem like they're there with good intentions, and the beggar gets scared. Jang-il tries to explain, saying he just needed information he couldn't get, and that's why he brought our hero to get the help he needed. The leader then agrees to believe him but still seems suspicious. Jang-il thanks her, relieved, but the leader cuts his celebration short. She says that giving the information is another story since her client injured one of hers, and because of that, they'll need compensation for the damage caused. Jang-il and our guy are confused, not knowing what kind of compensation she wants. Guy Nang Nang then explains that in their world, the rule is blood for blood, and suddenly, 4 shadows emerge from nowhere to attack the two without mercy. Our hero then scoffs, saying everyone has a fancy way of showing up. Leader Guy warns that since he injured one of hers, he won't leave there unscathed. Our guy tries to explain it was an accident, but Jang-il tells him to stop. Annoyed, the leader curses at our protagonist, who remains unfazed. She then says the rule of their world is simple: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but our hero mocks her, saying it sounds like something a loan shark would say to collect a debt. One of the thugs then says they're just going to take a piece of flesh from his face. With a smile, our protagonist says there's no fat on his face. He even jokes that he hasn't been eating well lately, making the leader furious. Guy Nang Nang completely loses her patience, and her face contorts with hatred. Without a second thought, she orders her men to finish him off right then and there. The 4 warriors then charge at our hero with their swords. Our guy wonders if they didn't just want a piece of his face, and now they want to take him out. He then comments that that's some high interest, and it's scary to even think about. Thus, our protagonist prepares to face the 4 enemies at once. Leader Guy is shocked at how easily our hero defeats her men. With a serious expression, he tells everyone not to move and emanates a powerful aura. Our protagonist then says he doesn't want to hurt anyone for now. Impressed, the leader realizes his aura is on another level. He then remembers his master's teachings and knows he can't let it slide. Go Nang Nang realizes she messed with the wrong person and that he's too strong. She needs to compose herself because any mistake could lead her branch to ruin. In a calmer voice, she asks what our guy really wants there. Jang-il shows the papers and asks her to fill in the missing information. The leader is surprised they brought a monster for something so simple. She says it's not difficult and asks for 15 minutes to sort everything out. But first, she calls the beggar leader for a private conversation. Our hero then starts laughing uncontrollably at the poor beggar's face. Jang-il returns with a swollen face, and our guy mocks him, asking if she hit him. Annoyed, the beggar complains that she's not just some random member of the house sect. He explains that she's the future leader of the house sect and has eaten all sorts of good things. After the beating, Jang-il returns all cheerful to continue the conversation. Guy Nang Nang then hands over the information our guy asked for, and he thanks her. However, she warns that they have their own rules, and the beggar is confused. The leader then charges a fee of 5 silver nyang for the confidential information. Our hero thinks it's cheap and offers 5 bronze coins he had in his pocket, but the leader says it's 5 silver nyang, and our guy freaks out at the price. She explains that it's high security information, which is why it's so expensive. Seeing that he doesn't have the money, our protagonist gets up to leave. He says he'll have to earn his 5 silver nyang somehow. Desperate, the beggar grabs him and says he brought him there for a reason. He then cries and complains that there's nothing he can do to pay the debt. In the end, Jang-il uses all the money he earned with our hero to pay. With a heavy heart, he hands the silver to the leader, and our guy scoffs. Upon reading the list, our protagonist recognizes the quality and admits they're on another level. Our hero then takes the opportunity and asks if it's expensive to send a letter to Guangdong. Leader Gui says it's more expensive than an escort agency, but will trade it for some answers. She asks for his name and age, and Jang-il freaks out upon learning our guy is only 17. Guy Nang Nang is also shocked, as his martial prowess doesn't belong to someone so young. She then repeats the name Wei Yanho to herself, processing the bombshell information. Gui Nang Nang then asks if he is Wei Yanho from the Guangdong clan, and our guy is surprised, wanting to know how she knows him. She explains that his clan asked the house sect to find him, and Jangil freaks out learning our hero is Sanho's younger brother. Our protagonist asks if she knows his older brother, and Jangil excitedly butts in, saying he's a friend of his. The leader then asks about the letter and warns it will take 10 days. But our hero doesn't care since they've already waited 5 years. Additionally, she hands him a red cloth as a special courtesy from the sect. She explains that it marks him as a guest, and that an informant will find him if he ties the cloth somewhere. Guy Nang Nang comments that there's no one who can defeat her swordsman at 17, and he asks if the service is free, but she denies it. She says it would be good to build a connection with him, but our hero finds it useless, so she offers free information next time. With a seductive look, the leader says it's a special offer so as not to lose him as a client after the earlier mess. Our guy plays dumb, but Jangil complains that his face is swollen and he's broke. The beggar gets furious and yells that he's not a loser while lamenting losing all his money in the commotion. Our protagonist then says money comes and goes, and that a beggar like him shouldn't be so greedy. Jangil gets totally frustrated because he knows he couldn't even hit our guy to vent his anger. Fed up, he says our hero got what he wanted and that they never have to see each other again. However, our protagonist grabs him and says there's still one problem, making the beggar even more annoyed with the situation. With a grin from ear to ear, our hero announces that he doesn't have a single penny. The poor beggar Jangil's face twists in pure rage and disgust at the situation. Desperate, he lets out a curse that echoes throughout the entire city. Meanwhile, Gui Nangnang watches the scene from afar with a thoughtful expression. She then calls her servant Gongmu, who appears to receive her orders. The leader tells him to send a letter to the main sect as quickly as possible, because our hero had arrived at the Grand Hamlin Institute, and the message was about him. And the letter said that the missing son of the Wei clan had returned as a martial master. Our protagonist then arrives at the beautiful institute, which seems very peaceful. Inside, a man sits alone quietly enjoying the view. This is the third great scholar, Mun Yuan, one of the targets on our hero's list. Suddenly, a young lady approaches and calls him father, respectfully. This is his daughter, Munyunj, and she informs him that he has a special guest. The scholar says he has nothing on his schedule, but she explains that the visitor wants to play Go. Upon hearing the word, Go, the old man's eyes light up and he gets super excited about the idea. The scholar's daughter, Munyunj, then announces our hero's arrival. Politely, our protagonist says he hopes he's not intruding with his visit, but the scholar Mun Yuan welcomes him warmly and confirms that he wanted to play Go. Sitting at the table, Yanho says it's the only game he knows how to play. Excited, the scholar accepts the challenge and says he'll play with the white pieces. Our guy then gets ready to start the match with a very focused look. Yuan thinks he shouldn't expect much as he seems to just want a meal. However, our hero surprises everyone with a quick and very strong move. The scholar realizes he's not a novice and decides to see what happens. He soon notices that our guy's moves are very fast and experienced. The match continues at a frantic pace, with both of them playing non-stop. Suddenly, the scholar's hand trembles, and he pauses to think about his next move. He realizes that the young man isn't just playing quickly. With a smile, our hero asks if he's not going to play, and the old man understands everything. It turns out that Yanho plays like a war demon, leaving the board in chaos. Impressed, the scholar Mun Yuan finds his playing style incredible. He describes our hero's style as the raging waves of the ocean. Furthermore, he seems like a battle-crazed person who attacks unnecessarily, because as soon as he finds the smallest opening in his opponent's game, our guy charges forward like a starving demon and simply devours him. Basically, he's a true war demon on the Go board. After the match, Yuan praises his style, and he says it was because of his master. He then remembers the old ghost, who was a very strict master with him. Our protagonist then asks if he can stay for a while, as his master sent him to Rulan. The scholar understands that he's following his teachings and offers to help. He then tells his daughter to prepare a room, but our hero says he has no money. However, Yuan laughs and says he didn't expect payment and was going to invite him anyway. But in return, he asks our guy to play Go with him or a guest from time to time. Our protagonist sees no problem with that and accepts the deal on the spot. The scholar then says goodbye, and his daughter, Munyunj, guides him to his new room. In the bath, our hero finally relaxes and sighs in relief with the hot water. He then reflects that he used to hate bathing when he was younger but is enjoying it now. With a wry smile, our guy says it's all his old master's fault. Outside, Munyunj arrives with clean clothes to give to the guest, but she doesn't understand why her father accepted such a strange person like him. Suddenly, our protagonist steps out of the steam, and the girl gets a huge scare. Startled, she lets out a scream, and our hero turns around, not understanding the situation. She then says she thought he was a ghost and tells him to cover up quickly. Awkwardly, our guy takes the towel from her hands to dry himself. The young woman is completely embarrassed, her face turning red after seeing the scene. After covering up, our protagonist's appearance changes completely. With a smile, he asks if he's good enough for her now. Still shocked, Manhwa just stammers and asks who he really is. A few days pass, and the girl runs desperately to talk to her father. She then complains and asks him to do something about the new guest in the house. It turns out our hero hasn't left his room at all, making Manhwa furious. She complains that he sleeps all day and reminds him that her father said laziness is a sin. But Yuwon explains that Go reveals a person's nature because you can't hide in the game. And our guy's style was impatient and rude, like someone who can't enjoy the battle. That's why he concludes that Yeonho isn't lazy and must have had a very difficult life. If he's resting now, it's because his life up to this point has been very hard. The scholar adds that one shouldn't shoo away a bird taking shelter from the rain, and that they should leave him in peace. Manhwa then agrees with her father and seems to understand the whole situation. However, she thinks her father has been deceived and gets angry at his excuse. She then goes to the room and finds our protagonist sleeping amidst the mess. Seeing the scene, she's sure he's just a lazy bum and decides to kick him out. With her arms crossed, she approaches and yells for him to get up right away. Our hero wakes up a bit confused, not understanding why she's there yelling. Impatiently, the girl pulls his blanket off and tells him to get up because the sun is already up. But our guy just scratches his head and asks her to let him know when the sun sets. Annoyed, Manhwa yells that our hero just sleeps while everyone else is studying. But our guy replies that people study because they want to, and he just wants to sleep. Furious, she complains that he does nothing and that they don't have money to feed a slacker. Yano still tries to use her father as an excuse, but the girl cuts him off. Our protagonist then sighs and asks what he needs to do to pay for his stay. Without a second thought, she takes him to a pile of dirty laundry and tells him to wash it all. He's shocked by the amount, and she confirms that it will pay for his food. With a smile, she wishes him good luck and tells him to do a good job. She's determined not to let him rest, and thinks he won't finish today. However, 2 hours later, the girl is completely shocked by what she sees. All the clothes were perfectly clean and sparkling on the clothesline. She then wonders if the clothes were always that white. To make matters worse, our hero had already finished everything and was taking a nap. Manhwa clenches her fists and decides she won't let him rest at all. So she takes him to his next task, which is to chop a mountain of firewood. With a smile, she gives him a week to chop the wood and bets he'll run away. However, the next day, the girl is shocked by the mountain of chopped firewood. Next, she tells him to wash a pile of dishes, but the result is the same. And then the same thing happens with the gardening, leaving her speechless. Furious, Manhwa clenches her fists and wonders how he's so good at everything. And that's how our protagonist's life in Rulan finally began. But the story returns to the present with the mad dog saying it was a mistake, because our guy brings disaster wherever he goes, even if unintentionally. Thus, the Institute, once a place of peace, turned into chaos with his arrival. The historian then gets curious and asks what happened there. The old beggar prepares to tell how all the trouble started, and the reason for it all was something very simple: the famous game of Go. Our hero is exhausted and doesn't understand how he lost the match again. He thought it would only be once in a while, but now everyone wants to play. And one of the letters said that a still stone gathers moss, and the table awaits its owner. With that, several Go masters were invited to play with our hero, and a rumor spread that a Go master had appeared at the Hanlam Institute. But our guy ends up defeating them all, one by one, without mercy. With a bored smile, he simply calls for the next opponent, until a mysterious man makes a very strange move on the board. The opponent is thoughtful and analyzes the move with great attention, because our hero's move was basically an act of suicide in the game. He then doubts it's a mistake, since the opponent is the undefeated genius of Hanlam. Our protagonist then realizes his opponent is overthinking it. The man concludes that the move is a trap and that he needs to avoid it. Suddenly, he sees our guy trembling and thinks he was right about the trap. But in reality, Yeonho is freaking out because he didn't fall for his suicide move. He did it so he could lose and stop playing Go forever. In the end, the man falls into the trap anyway and loses the match. With tears in his eyes, our hero realizes he's stuck in this cycle. Completely worn out, our hero drags himself down the hallway after another match. He laments that his suicide moves only scare his opponents instead of making him lose. Desperate, our guy pulls his hair out because, at this rate, more people will come to play with him. He then grumbles that he'd rather be doing laundry than going through this. Suddenly, he hears a voice yelling that they don't want to do something. Curious, our protagonist peeks down the hallway to see what's happening. There, he sees a man named Nok Mopung asking if Manhwa doesn't want to marry him. But the girl refuses the proposal on the spot, saying she doesn't want to at all. Mopung warns that she'll regret it, but Manhwa doesn't seem to care. He then says he always gets what he wants, and that this is just an offer for now. The man even threatens to bring down the institute because of her. But the girl tells him to try. However, Mokpung claims he can make it happen and that she knows it too. The young woman's expression fills with anger at his audacity and threat. She then yells that she hates his ways and will never marry him. The man says goodbye, but Manung grabs his arm before he can leave. However, Mopung grips her arm tightly, showing his dominance. He throws her to the ground, and the girl yells for him to let her go immediately. With a cold look, the man warns that it's better for her not to anger him. He even gets closer and says he can take her by force if he wants. Our hero then appears and says that's not something to say in someone else's house. With his arms crossed, our protagonist faces Mokpung with a defiant look. Muneng is surprised and annoyed by our guy's interference in the fight. She then asks if he's finished his chores, but he says he was playing Go. With trembling hands, our hero prepares to join the fight for real. He then borrows the ribbon from the girl's hair, leaving her confused. Our protagonist uses the ribbon to tie up his hair and get ready to fight. Mokpung asks if it's not rude to listen in on others' conversations, but our hero doesn't care. Our guy then says that people who care about manners don't act like him. Mokpung ignores him and deduces that he must be the so-called genius of Hanlim everyone talks about. But our hero simply ignores the comment and continues to stare down the man. Our hero then thanks him for the recognition but says he doesn't know who he is. And with a mocking smile, he says that he actually doesn't care at all. Mokpung warns that he should have kept playing Go instead of getting involved. But our guy says he's very good at bothering others, just like now. The man gets furious and curses him, but suddenly a group of people appears. They then recognize our hero and ask to play a match with him. Mokpung gives up on the fight and decides to leave but warns them not to forget. Because if the girl doesn't come to him in 3 days, he'll do things his way. Manung then pulls him away, and everyone bows to the powerful man. Our protagonist asks who that was, and the young woman sighs in relief. She explains it was Nok Mokpung, the adopted son of a palace attendant. Our guy then asks what he wanted, and the girl gets a bit awkward. She reveals that the man wants to marry her, but she always refuses. Our hero jokes that he seems nice, but Manan gets furious at the idea, because the man just wants to use her for her father's network of contacts. She then mentions that her father is a perfect candidate to be a politician. Our guy guesses it's because of Go, but she denies it angrily on the spot. It turns out that the eunuchs of the imperial palace are very afraid of her father. And the reason is that the Hanlim Institute isn't just any ordinary place. Because it's unaffiliated, they managed to build many important connections. Thus, if her father united the forces of Rulan, the corrupt eunuchs would be driven out. Our hero then deduces that they would be in danger, and the girl confirms it. That's why Mopung's father wants to prevent her father from entering civil service. And the solution they found was for the two of them to marry to unite the families. Mopung then apologizes to his father, but says things have gotten complicated. The chief eunuch Nokjai asks who this Go-playing genius is. But Mopung explains that the problem is that people from all over the country are coming to play. With so many eyes watching, his actions are limited, and he can't make a move. Nokji understands the hesitation, and Mopung apologizes for the failure of the plan. However, the chief eunuch reminds him that this mission is not just for him, because the mission to take over the imperial palace was given by the one and only true master. And failure is not an option, not for him and not for Mopung, no way. Afraid, Mopung confirms he understands because he fears the master's disappointment more than death. Nokji then says that sometimes violence is necessary to solve problems. Mopung is confused and doesn't understand what he means by that. With a malicious smile, the chief eunuch tells him to use the crowd to his advantage. He then orders Mopung to eliminate everyone in the way, including the genius of Hanlim. Meanwhile, our hero dozes off during a match, and his opponent wakes him up. The next day, an important man visits the institute to speak with the scholar. He asks if Yuan still has no intention of taking a government position, but the scholar just apologizes and maintains his usual stance. The man then scolds him for not helping to maintain the balance of power. With a sigh, he warns that the eunuch's movements are no longer normal, because even among the military and the scholars, strange movements are happening. And all of this is because of the corruption spreading due to Nokjai. The scholar Man Yuhuan seems thoughtful, but Wan Jia continues the conversation. He asks if Yuan wants to know why a humiliated eunuch wants a rebellion. Then Huan Jia suggests that perhaps the master Nokki serves as someone else, because the eunuch's power struggles are more frightening than one might imagine. And even with no backing, Nokji defeated everyone and rose to the top of power. His enemies died in accidents or from sudden illnesses far too often. Yuan still thinks it could all just be a big coincidence, but Wanjia says he thought so too until he saw Noki's recent movements. That's why he needs Yuan to gather the scholars so they can resist. The scholar still hesitates and says he'll think about it a bit more. Jia then changes the subject and asks about the talent he mentioned. With a smile, Won describes him as an extraordinary person in hiding. Curious, Jia asks when he can meet him, and Won says right now. Suddenly, his daughter Manunj arrives and announces that the guest is here. And that talent is our hero, who shows up all wet and worn out at the door. The two old men are confused by our hero's completely worn out appearance. Our guy then complains that he slept well, but it would have been better without the cold water. Won laughs and says he called him to introduce a very important person. The old Jia introduces himself mysteriously, saying he's just a man passing through. Despite the mystery, he says he's only there to play a game of Go. But to everyone's surprise, our protagonist says he can't play at the moment. Jia is confused because he plays with everyone who shows up at the institute. Our hero then explains that he doesn't refuse to play, but he needs to respect the order of the line. The old man then says he can solve the problem and asks the others to wait. However, our guy confronts him and says that's not a solution, it's coercion. The two old men are completely shocked by our hero's attitude. He further explains that even if the others agree, they won't be convinced, because there are things like principles and promises that need to be respected. Jia then realizes that the young man is more determined than he imagined. Annoyed, the old man insists, but our guy stands firm and tells him to wait. Suddenly, Manhwa calls her father and says she thinks she can resolve the standoff. Jia doubts the girl, but Won looks at her and she confirms her idea. With a mocking smile, she thinks his principles are just an excuse. She then whispers to our hero that he only has one more game to play today. Our guy is shocked when she offers to cancel everything so he can rest. Even though he's tempted, he talks about his principles, but she says she can only cancel until tomorrow. With no more patience, the young woman tells him to stop the tricks and decide what he's going to do. With a grin from ear to ear, our protagonist announces that the game is about to begin. Seeing the scene, the two old men stand there with very disappointed faces. Jia then thinks that our hero is the worst and that he's all talk. However, he decides that since they started, they need to see the game through to the end. Thus, the old Jia makes his move to see who our guy really is. The Go match begins, and the tension on the board already shows it's going to be a tough fight. The game stretches into the night and Jia remains completely focused on strategy. In the end, Won asks if he didn't enjoy the match, and the old man seems thoughtful. The old Jia is speechless and completely immersed in the game of Go. Because our hero's playing style is so fierce, it's unlike anything seen even on a battlefield. With an intense look, he wonders what kind of life the young man has had until now. However, he thinks that his brutal or lazy image doesn't match the talent he's looking for. Disappointed, Jia says it was a waste of time, but Won disagrees. Jia is confused and doesn't understand why his friend values the young man so much, but the scholar explains that once, for an instant, he made a divine move. He even admits it was a very good move and that it impressed him. After the match, he took his eyes off the board and looked to the other side, and there he saw a different look on our tired protagonist's face. Because a person who has fallen to an extreme sometimes reveals a face of self-denial. The two then go out to talk and reflect on the whole situation. Jia still has doubts and asks if Won couldn't have been mistaken, but the scholar assures him with absolute certainty that there's no way he could have been wrong. Thus, the two friends say goodbye, and Jia leaves with his doubts. Jia then says he has no intention of using that person, but Won doubts it. He adds that it was a waste of time, but the scholar disagrees because he got to see him. The old man then says goodbye and mentions he needs to go because the mood in the imperial family isn't good. Jia then reflects that it's a shame to have to leave like that. That night, Mokpung and his men prepare for the attack on the institute. One of his servants informs him that everything is ready, and the man approves the plan. With a determined look, he gathers with his assassins for the invasion. He then orders his men to take down everyone as quickly as possible. The group of assassins then storms into the institute with full force. Suddenly, a guard yawns bored, unaware of what's about to happen. The poor guy doesn't even notice the invasion and ends up being caught by surprise. In a short time, all the institute's guards are defeated by the invaders. With a victorious smile, Mokpung says they should have listened to him earlier. He then prepares to deliver the final blow and capture everyone there. With a malicious look, he asserts that tonight, not a single rat will escape. Meanwhile, our hero sleeps peacefully, completely unaware of the commotion. With a malicious smile, Mokpung says he's going to teach Manhwa a lesson. Later, everyone present at the institute is tied up and held hostage. The scholar Won shouts and asks the meaning of this invasion. Mokpung then explains that he received information about suspicious activities there, and with a cynical smile, he questions why people with power would gather. To him, there's only one possibility for all this: a revolution. Won freaks out and says they are only there to play a game of Go. But Mokpung doubts that so many important people would gather just for a game. The scholar still tries to use the rumors of the genius, but Mokpung doesn't believe it. The man then starts looking for someone among the tied-up hostages. He asks for our hero, but no one knows where the young man has gone. His servants then report that there's no one else in the building besides them. Mokpung thinks he ran away and calls him lucky for escaping the mess. Finally, he warns that if they are innocent, everyone will be released without any problems. Suddenly, one of Mokpung's servants appears, shouting that he found something. He then shows a book with an agreement signed by the revolution's planners. All the hostages panic and say they never did such a thing. But Mokpung shows the book and says the proof is right in front of them. Yu Wan realizes they were tricked from the beginning with a well-laid plan. Everyone starts screaming that they are innocent and knew nothing about it. Suddenly, Huan Jie appears and finds the whole incident very interesting. Mokpung is shocked to see that the royal inspector is there amidst the chaos. The emperor's brother then reveals himself and shows his authority to everyone. With a furious shout, Huan Jie demands they call him by his official title. The hostages celebrate, thinking they are saved because the inspector saw everything. Mokpung then apologizes and says he wouldn't have done it if he knew he was there. Huan Jie says he holds no grudge and asks him to release all the innocent people. But Mokpung wants to ask a question first, and the old man is curious. With a serious look, he asks why the inspector planned this revolution. With a malicious smile, Mokpung says he knew of his presence there all along. He then explains that every revolution has a central figure, and it makes sense for it to be him. Huan Jie freaks out and shouts that his arrogance knows no bounds for accusing him. But Mokpung warns that he won't be able to report anything, because he won't see the emperor. Because the punishment for revolution is death, and everyone there will meet their end that night. Huan Jie curses Mokpung, but the man just scoffs at his pleas. Before finishing everyone off, he says there's someone who needs to go first. And to no one's surprise, the first chosen victim is the young Manhwa. He then says he warned her he would do things his way if she rejected him. Mokpung taunts her and asks if she's willing to change her mind now. The girl then spits in his face, showing all her contempt and disgust. And she even shouts that she'd rather meet her end there than marry someone like him. With a sadistic smile, Mokpung says he won't take her out at all, because he's going to make her wish for it, with a pain 100 times worse than she can imagine. But Manhwa just stands firm and says she'd rather perish than be humiliated by him. With a knife to the scholar's throat, Mokpung warns that if she takes her own life, her father will suffer. And if her father takes his own life, then the rest of the people there will suffer the same fate, because all the revolutionaries' families will be eliminated without any mercy. The young Manhwa grinds her teeth in anger and hatred, not knowing what to do. Mokpung taunts her, telling her to just do it, as he doesn't mind having more people to have fun with. Desperate, Yu Wan shouts his daughter's name, trying to prevent the tragedy. With a malicious smile, the man prepares to begin the torture session. The girl then pleads for help and screams for rescue in the middle of the night. In a moment of desperation, she loses hope and closes her eyes for the worst. But suddenly, she notices something strange happening around her. Out of nowhere, our protagonist appears, running across the institute's rooftops. With a precise jump, he lands right in the middle of the commotion without anyone noticing. He then leaps from the roof and drops right into the torture scene. And in a very heroic pose, our guy shouts the name Wei Yanho for all to hear. With a laugh, our hero sits down, and the girl asks what the heck he's doing. Our hero then says he's getting out of there, and the girl freaks out at his answer. With a smile, he asks what the problem is, since he's just leaving. She then shouts that he should help them, but our guy says it's already hard enough to stay alive. Our protagonist says she's overestimating his abilities and that the best choice is to pretend he saw nothing. With a wave, he says goodbye and jumps to the roof to escape the mess. All the hostages are shocked and curse him for being a total coward. Suddenly, Mokpung shouts for him to stop, because now he's involved in the revolution. The man even threatens him, saying the whole world will be after him and he won't be safe. But our guy scoffs and tells him to look for him later, if he can. Furious, Mokpung orders his men to get the young man, no matter what. One of the assassins then charges at our hero with a swift attack. Our protagonist dodges with ease and prepares for the counter-attack. Desperate, Manhwa shouts for him to run and get away as fast as possible. Our guy stops and thinks about the young woman's sudden request. Confused, he wonders what he should do, since before she wanted help, and now she wants him to flee. With an afterimage, our hero easily dodges the assassin's attack. And with a powerful blow, he defeats the enemy and sends him flying without effort. Our protagonist then sighs and says the girl is really strange. He then kneels before her like a true knight of the night. All the hostages are shocked by our guy's strength and skill. Mokpung is speechless after seeing his best assassin defeated so easily. With a smile, he says our hero has some skill, and he thanks him for the compliment. But Mopung says it wasn't a compliment, and our guy mocks the situation. Annoyed, the man calls his other servant, Hukal, to handle the situation. He then complains about the humiliation he's enduring because of that kid. The servant apologizes and says he'll take care of everything immediately, without fail. Mopung then gives an order not to harm the girl, leaving the servant confused, because he wants to finish her off with his own hands to avenge the humiliation. Suddenly, our hero asks them to wait a second before they continue. The servant then stops and asks what he wants before the final showdown. Our hero then says he needs to use his sword and asks the servant to wait. He even taunts the enemy, saying he's old enough to wait. With a sigh, our guy grabs a broom and complains that the world has gotten tough. The servant freaks out and asks what he's doing, and our hero doesn't answer. Since he can't get his sword, he says he'll use the broom instead. The assassin gets furious and asks if he's mocking him. Our protagonist then says if he's annoyed, then he should let him get his sword. But the servant says he won't take him out, but he'll make him wish for it. And he warns that it won't do any good if he cries and begs later. Our guy then yawns and asks if they can start soon because he's sleepy. The servant explodes with rage at our hero's audacity and mockery. With a furious shout, he charges at the young man with his flaming sword. Our protagonist prepares for combat and faces him with a serious look. The servant's blow is so strong that it shatters the ground around him. But our hero dodges and lands a precise hit with the broom on the enemy. The servant falls defeated and doesn't understand what happened to his body. With the broom in hand, our hero defeats the enemy with a single blow. Everyone present is shocked by our guy's strength and skill. With a smile, he says that as expected, trash is best cleaned with a broom. Mopung and the others are speechless at the scene they just witnessed. The fallen servant gets up and is shocked by our hero's power. Our guy then tells him he's lucky it was him and not his master. The servant gets angry and charges at our hero again with everything he's got. But our protagonist easily blocks the attack with the broom. The assassin is shocked by our guy's speed and strength. He then admits that our hero isn't all talk and is genuinely strong. However, he says that in a real fight, the strongest doesn't always win. With a deadly poison in hand, he prepares to use a dirty trick. Our protagonist notices the poison and says that's pretty disgusting of him. The servant doesn't care and says he can blame him all he wants. But our hero warns that it won't work on him at all. The servant doubts it and asks if he's immune to poisons. But our guy denies it. He then explains that he's not immune, but the situation is a bit different. With the broom in hand, he prepares to attack the enemy with everything he has. Our protagonist then attacks him with a powerful blow, sending him flying. The servant is shocked and prepares to block the attack with all his strength. Desperate, the man tries to protect himself, but our hero is too fast. With a smile, our guy taunts him for thinking of blocking the blow. He then unleashes a series of rapid attacks with the broom on the enemy. The servant is hit multiple times and can't even react to the blows. All beaten up, the assassin falls to the ground, defeated and with no strength to fight. All the hostages are shocked to see that our hero won the fight. With the broom pointed at the enemy, he prepares for the final blow. The scene shocks everyone, who didn't expect such a major turnaround. Our guy then says his master taught him not to wait and to just knock them out. Mopung is shocked, as Hukal is the head of his father's shadow force. Our hero then says that if he retreats now, it will be better for both of them. The man approaches and starts clapping for our protagonist. With a smile, he praises the young man's martial prowess for someone so young. Our guy is overjoyed and agrees with the compliment without hesitation. Mun-unj gets annoyed and asks why he's happy with the enemy's compliment. Mopung then laughs and seems to have a very interesting idea in mind. He says it's a shame that Hukal couldn't defeat him, but on the other hand, he sees an opportunity to meet a martial artist. With a greedy look, he invites our hero to work for him. The girl is suspicious and asks what his plan is with all this. Mopung then offers power and wealth that our guy can't even imagine. Our protagonist reflects that any person with honor would refuse the offer. Mun-unj is shocked to realize he's thinking about accepting the invitation. But our hero says he'll accept and asks for the numbers of the proposal. Furious, Mun-unj shouts our hero's name and tells him to drop dead on the spot. But Mopung keeps tempting our guy with promises of power and wealth. Our protagonist then reflects that any person with common sense would refuse. The girl is shocked and can't believe he's considering the offer. But our hero says he'll fall for it and asks Mopung for the numbers. Hwanjia freaks out and asks if power and wealth are that important. Our guy confirms on the spot and says yes, they are very important. All the hostages are shocked by the response and our hero's greed. Hwanjia then offers power and wealth, saying his protector is the imperial family. But Mopung scoffs and says his father can give much more power and wealth. Our protagonist seems to agree and Hwanjia is speechless at the betrayal. Yuan then scolds him and asks if his master taught him nothing. Desperate, he asks what the master would say in a situation like this, because he's sure the master wouldn't have taught him anything wrong. Our hero then thinks for a moment and remembers what his master taught him. With a smile, our hero says his master taught him to side with whoever pays more, because morality and virtue are empty names that don't fill anyone's stomach. Yu-won is shocked and wonders what kind of master would say such a thing. Mokpung then takes the opportunity and asks if he'll work for his father. Our guy asks if he needs to work, and the girl offers him lifetime rest. Mokpung then says if he doesn't want to work, he'll still receive the rewards. Our protagonist calls him generous, and the man proudly confirms it. All the hostages realize it's all a big lie to trick him. Our hero then asks what he needs to do to receive his reward. With a malicious smile, Mokpung reveals his true plan for him. The first task is to eliminate everyone in front of him without hesitation. Our guy then turns to the hostages and asks if that's right. He even taunts them and asks why they planned a betrayal. The hostages shout that it's all a lie, but our hero doesn't seem to believe them. He then says he's never taken a life and thinks it's wrong. Impatiently, Mokpung orders his servants to bring his sword to end it all. One of his men then prepares to attack the scholar with his sword. Yu-won freaks out and asks how a servant of the state can commit such treason, but Mokpung says what he's doing now is an act of loyalty. Desperate, Manun shouts her father's name, trying to prevent the tragedy. With clenched teeth, the scholar asks for his daughter's forgiveness before he passes. Suddenly, our hero stops the sword with his hand and says that's enough playing around. Mokpung is shocked by the young man's strength and can't believe what he's seeing. Our guy then says he hasn't forgotten anything and that he's only playing around up to this point. With a smile, he asks if Mokpung knows what's essential for a lazy life, and the answer is to never create problems that will haunt you later. He then recounts how he once broke his father's inkstone and panicked, and the 3 days of waiting for his father's return were torture for him. When his father returned, he got a good beating, but then he could rest in peace. Hwanjia then comments that he could have perished in that situation. Mokpung then calls our hero the Go Champion, but he doesn't understand at all. Our guy then remembers another of his master's teachings about grudges. He taught him to never forget kindness, and to repay it 10 or 20 times over. With a smile, he says now is the time to repay the kindness he received. All the hostages are moved and shocked by his change of attitude. Mokpung understands that behind the words, he wants to stop him from continuing. With a loud laugh, he stops laughing and stares at our protagonist with contempt. He then approaches and prepares for the final showdown between the two. With an arrogant look, he asks if our hero thinks he tried to bribe him. Our guy scoffs and says it didn't seem like he was scared at all. Mokpung then says he's going to show the young man his true power. With a golden aura, he prepares to attack with all his strength. He adds that it would be nothing for him to take our hero out right there, and with an air of superiority, he says it's an honor to fall by his hands. The hostages then realize that Mokpung also trained in martial arts. Our hero then dodges the energy hands that attack him relentlessly. Meanwhile, Mokpung gives him advice to live without laziness in his next life. However, our protagonist faces the attack with a very serious and focused expression. All the hostages are shocked and scared by the intensity of the confrontation, but our guy finds the attack very strange, as it feels like he's seen it before. Mokpung then boasts that he used his ultimate technique from the start of the fight. However, he's shocked because our guy didn't even bother to react to the blow. Yunho dodges all the energy attacks with absurd ease. Disbelieving what he's seeing, Mokpung stammers, and our hero asks if he's done yet. The villain then starts to sweat, realizing the mess he's gotten himself into. Our protagonist says he saw everything and doesn't even need to ask what happened. Thus, our guy prepares to finally put an end to all the nonsense, and he warns that he's only going to throw a single punch to resolve the situation. Meanwhile, the hostages watch everything with an expression of pure shock. With a powerful kick, our hero sends Mokpung flying to the other side. The old Hwanjia then asks if the man ended up perishing from the blow, but Yanho says he's fine because his fat cushioned the entire fall. He then asks if they should continue, but Mokpung shouts for him to wait. Terrified, the villain suggests that everyone pretend that none of this happened. However, hero and the hostages stare at him with less than friendly faces. Hwanjia then shouts that this is unacceptable and orders his men to arrest Mokpung immediately. However, the villain begs for his life, but the old man asks if he's ever seen an inspector forgive a traitor. Mokpung then thinks that if he doesn't return, his father will know the whole plan went wrong, and regardless of the outcome, the imperial house will suffer irreparable damage. With a look of pure contempt, Hwanjia calls him a wicked man for his threats, because he knows that if he lets the villain go, his father Nakjai will use even worse means. Our hero then says this is politics and that the inspector just wants temporary peace. Hwanjia then says he heard that eunuchs are like rats and always leave an escape route, and after much thought, the old inspector surprises everyone and tells the villain to leave. But our protagonist stops him and says he wants to give some advice before he leaves. He then reveals that he knows about the villain's martial art and its great weakness, because for a real fight, it would be better for him to undo his transformation. Mokpung then says he'll remember that for the next time they meet. Our guy says he'd prefer there not to be a next time, but the villain guarantees there will be. And Yaunho agrees that there will be a next meeting as long as he uses that form. Our hero then watches Mokpung and his men leave without caring much about the situation. With a smile on his face, he decides that the mess is finally over for good. Meanwhile, the hostages he saved stand there, watching the scene, relieved. Yaunho then stretches and says he's going to sleep and that the rest is up to them. Manunja freaks out and asks if he's going to sleep again, but he reminds her of their deal. He then runs off and shouts not to be woken up under any circumstances until the next day. The girl is speechless and wonders what kind of person he is, and the others agree. After that day, our protagonist's life continued to be very calm and comfortable. He finally got the life he wanted while Yuan and Tuanjia cleaned up the mess. Now, no one bothered him for sleeping and he got food in bed, a paradise. However, our lazy guy's peace was about to be shattered once again. Suddenly, his bedroom door opens and someone enters uninvited. The young Manunj appears and, with her arms crossed, tells him to wake up right now. She then approaches our hero, who remains lying in bed, quite calm. But the girl sees through the trick and says he's just pretending to be asleep. Our hero then wakes up and complains about his rest being disturbed, but the girl says her father is calling him. Impatiently, Mun-inj throws him on the floor and drags him out of the room by force. Arriving there, she announces that she brought our guy, and her father tells him to come in. Our protagonist then enters the room where Yuan and Huanjia are waiting for him. The scholar thanks his daughter and says she can leave now. Thus, our hero and the girl bow to leave and end the conversation. However, Yuan shouts that he wasn't supposed to leave, confusing the young woman. Our guy then points to her and says that actually, she was supposed to stay. Seeing the scene, the old Wanjaya trembles with rage at the young man's audacity. Our protagonist sits down and complains of a headache, making the girl feel awkward. Yuan then tries to calm down the inspector, who looks like he's about to explode. Huanjia grips his fan tightly and glares at our hero with a deadly look. Our guy tells him to calm down, but the old man doesn't look happy at all. The inspector places the fan on the table, and with that, our guy grabs the object and hides it in his clothes. The inspector asks if our hero knows what that is, but he denies it on the spot. With a smile on his face, our guy replies that it looked very expensive. He even says his master taught him to take anything that looks like money. Our protagonist then says it's his now and that the fan belongs to him. Huanjia freaks out and reveals that it's the sacred relic of the inspectorate. Our hero holds the fan and doesn't seem to care much about the revelation. He then asks if there are any benefits like buying food or a house, and he adds that the world works on exchange, and he did his part. Our guy then suggests that nowadays, people want something more realistic. The old inspector understands everything and asks if he wants money instead. With a smile, our protagonist says he has his manners and wouldn't say it like that. Huanjia explodes with rage and attacks our hero. Our guy then picks up the inkstone and asks if that's his too. The old man explains that the fan is a relic that treats him as his equal. But our hero understands that this means more work and doesn't like the idea. The inspector says it's a government post, but our hero thinks it's the same thing. Yuan then explains that the position of secret inspector has been vacant for a while. Huanjia freaks out and says that's a reward and that he would sell his house to compensate him. Our guy is relieved and thinks the situation was about to get very problematic. The old man then realizes our hero's plan and shouts that he was going to sell the relic. Annoyed, Huanjia asks which clan he's from and who his master is, but our guy refuses to say. The inspector gets furious because our hero doesn't trust him even after knowing his position. He then explodes with anger because our protagonist is hiding his identity. But our guy says it's not about identity, leaving the old man confused. It's about not trusting someone who hides their martial arts and pretends to be weak. He then asks in how many seconds the old man would defeat Mokpung, implying that he's strong. The scene changes to a chessboard, and our hero feels like a piece in the game. He realizes he's being used in a much larger power play, and the great player behind it all is the Royal Inspector Huanjia himself. But our hero emanates a blue aura and says he can't stand being used as a pawn. Our hero says he can't stand being a pawn on someone else's board. Huanjia is surprised and asks if our guy knew he practiced martial arts. Yaunho explains that he found it strange that so many people would travel just to play Go. He realized there was a plan and that he had to choose a side in the mess. The old man then asks why he obviously didn't side with them, but our protagonist says that Mokpung's words seemed more truthful, because no matter how he looked at it, The whole thing seemed like a major betrayal. Huanjia then wants to know why he helped them even though he was suspicious. And the answer is simple, it was because the young Manhwa called out for help. He saw that the girl knew nothing, and that's why he couldn't just leave. Besides, his master taught him to value the person in front of him. Our hero then asks directly if the inspector is planning a betrayal. Huanjia challenges him and wants to know what he would do if the answer was yes. Yuan thinks that our guy doesn't care about the imperial family and just wants to sleep. But in the end, our hero says that the inspector was the one who at least gave him gold. With a laugh, Huanjia admits that our hero is cunning and has exceeded his expectations. He then confirms that our guy is right but swears he's not planning a betrayal. The problem is that the eunuch Nakji has already figured out their plan and is taking action. Huanjia then reveals the real reason Nakji sent Nakmokpang, and our hero is shocked to realize it was so he would be eliminated by the inspector. The goal was for Huanjia to take him out, giving Nakji a pretext to act. But our protagonist showed up and ended up ruining the villain's entire plan. The old inspector then apologizes for using him as a pawn and explains his desperation. Our guy understands the situation and accepts the old man's apology without any issue. Huanjia then asks if he will accept the position of Royal Secret Inspector. Our hero sets one condition: he will never go looking for trouble on his own. But the inspector doesn't mind, because he knows the world will never leave him in peace. Yaonho thinks this is a curse, but the old man says it's the path of a hero. Uninterested in the offer, our protagonist gets up to leave the place. The inspector also says his goodbyes, and our guy says he hopes they never see each other again. However, Inspector Huanjia feels that they will meet again very soon. Then Yuan asks his friend what he thought of our protagonist. Huanjia admits that our guy exceeded his expectations because he saw his power. He thought he had found a dragon, but in reality it was a monster. But the scholar Yuan says a risk of this magnitude is worth taking. The inspector says he's not just strong, but also very cunning and wonders who raised him. He then orders a full investigation into our hero and his family. Meanwhile, our protagonist relaxes on the roof under the light of the full moon. Suddenly, a voice asks if he's already leaving that place. And the person who appears is the scholar Yuan, who finds him on the roof. Our hero says he wouldn't leave without saying goodbye to the one who took him in. Yuan asks if he plans to leave soon, and our guy confirms. He says he learned a lot during his time at the institute. Curious, the scholar then asks what he learned that was so important. Our guy says that Rulin is a much scarier place than he imagined. Yuan then asks if our hero found Rulin to be a scary place. Our guy says he never imagined the strongest master he'd ever met would be there, and that why Huanjia's martial arts are incredible. But he's referring to someone else. With a smile, our hero asks if the scholar shouldn't stop pretending now. The old man then reveals his aura and asks in surprise if our guy already knew. Our protagonist confirms, and Yuan asks him to keep his secret. However, in exchange for his silence, our hero asks him to answer just one question. Yaonho explains that his master sent him to Rulin to see justice and integrity. But what he ended up seeing was the ugliness and corruption of the world. Yuan explains that everyone's ideals are different, and when they clash, people realize they need to overcome reality, and the impatient ones cut the knots. And that is the nature of dirty schemes, like sacrificing one's own life for a child. Our guy then asks if the whole world is like this, and the old man says the palace is worse. Yaonho reflects that he doesn't know what his master wanted because the world moves too fast. But Yuan says that if the world is fast, he can go slow, because a lazy person sees things more clearly. Yuan then asks if our hero found Rulin to be a scary place. Our guy says he never imagined the strongest master he'd ever met would be there, and that Huanjia's martial arts are incredible. But he's referring to someone else. With a smile, our hero asks if the scholar shouldn't stop pretending now. The old man then reveals his aura and asks in surprise if our guy already knew. Our protagonist confirms, and Yuan asks him to keep his secret. However, in exchange for his silence, our hero asks him to answer just one question. Yaonho explains that his master sent him to Rulin to see justice and integrity. But what he ended up seeing was the ugliness and corruption of the world. Yuan explains that everyone's ideals are different, and when they clash, people realize they need to overcome reality, and the impatient ones cut the knots. And that is the nature of dirty schemes, like sacrificing one's own life or a child. Our guy then asks if the whole world is like this, and the old man says the palace is worse. Yaonho reflects that he doesn't know what his master wanted because the world moves too fast. But Yuan says that if the world is fast, he can go slow because a lazy person sees things more clearly. With a smile, our hero reflects on the old scholar's words, so he simply throws himself onto the roof to rest for a bit, as he always does. However, our guy feels something and wonders if the core his master gave him is taking effect. Meanwhile, he looks at the full moon and seems to enter a trance-like state. Suddenly, the spirit of Baekmohan appears and asks if he has reached enlightenment. Our hero then replies to his master that he's not sure yet. The scene then cuts to a man who asks if the shipment item has been received, and that item is our protagonist, who is sleeping on top of a cart. It turns out that after being knocked out, Wyanho became the package itself. The story flashes back a bit, with the scholar observing our hero. Yu-won asks why he hasn't left yet, and Yanho says he'll go tomorrow. But the scholar complains that it's been 2 weeks that he's been stalling. Our guy then thanks him for calling the Dragon Escort Agency. One of the men then asks what exactly they're supposed to be transporting on this mission, and a woman points to our hero and says that the cargo is the thing over there. Our hero is then confused when he sees that the so-called package the woman was talking about was him. The men complain that he's a person, but she says he only looks human and is a burden. One of them then explains that they escort people, but in a different carriage, as they only came prepared to carry goods. However, Mun-unj tells them to treat him like an animal, and says she'll pay double the price to have him taken away. Even so, they still hesitate because of the agency's rules, and the girl offers triple the price. Impatiently, our hero offers quadruple, and the man accepts on the spot. Yanho freaks out and asks if they're sending him off like trash, and the girl says yes. Yu-won then explains to his daughter that it was about time to get rid of that parasite. Our guy shouts that he's their savior and asks if this is how they treat him. The scholar agrees but says if they let him stay, he'd be there until next year. Seeing there's no other way, the old man and his daughter decide it's time to send him off. Our hero then gets a slap and shouts that this isn't help, and the girl disagrees. She reminds him that he was going to Hubei and that since he's lazy, he can go with the agency. That way he gets a ride, the agency makes money, and they get rid of the boy. With a smile, our protagonist agrees and says she's very convincing. The girl then tells our hero to leave, but he says his mother taught him not to follow strangers. Despite his fear, our guy sits on the barrels and says he didn't expect to leave so suddenly. He then says his goodbyes from the cart while the scholar and his daughter wish him well. Mun-unj then comments that he seems very happy, and our hero asks if it's that obvious. With no more goodbyes, the cart starts moving, and our guy's journey finally begins. And as expected, he lies down to take a nap amidst the cargo. Suddenly, the girl shouts his name, and our hero opens his eyes, slightly annoyed by the noise. She then waves and wishes him well on his long journey. Our guy complains that she says that after kicking him out, and the young woman tells him to stop being lazy. The cart moves further away, and our protagonist waves back very faintly. Seeing that he's gone, the scholar tells his daughter they can go inside now. But Mun-unj still looks back one last time as the autumn leaves fall. In her thoughts, she says goodbye to the strange and lazy boy she met. Meanwhile, the agency leader, Gok Bahang, observes the package he's transporting, and he's completely shocked to realize that the so-called cargo is our hero sleeping. The escort leader, Gok Bahang, freaks out and asks if they're kidding him because they didn't prepare to transport a person. One of his men then explains that they wanted to refuse the request but couldn't because it came from the Hanlim Institute. Another man then asks how long our hero has been sleeping, and he replies that it's been since they left. Impressed, Leader Bahang says he must be sore but that it's amazing how he sleeps. Furthermore, the instructions said that if they fed him like cattle or a chicken, he wouldn't cause any trouble. Suddenly, our protagonist finally wakes up and stretches in front of everyone. One of the men gets annoyed with his casualness and bangs on the cart, shouting to get his attention. But our guy just looks down upside down and asks what's up. The leader then introduces himself as Gok Bahang, the person in charge of the escort mission. He warns that the journey will be uncomfortable, but our hero says he's there as cargo. Bahang still insists on the discomfort, but our guy says he just needs to stay put until they reach the destination. With a wave, he gets comfortable and tells them to continue the journey, leaving the leader speechless. However, 5 days after leaving the institute, our hero looks completely exhausted. He then stretches and complains that he's getting tired of this whole situation, because even when he's sleeping, his master haunts him in his dreams and forces him to train nonstop. Completely exhausted, our hero wonders how long this life will last. But he soon gives up on thinking and simply lies down again on the cart. Suddenly, the escort leader, Gok Bahang, tells everyone to stop because he sensed something. He then shouts and introduces himself, wanting to know who is hiding nearby. Our protagonist then wakes up and wonders if it's just some bandits. However, no one answers, and one of the men thinks this is not a good sign. Bahang deduces they are either amateur bandits or someone very dangerous. And as he draws his sword, he realizes it's not just any random bandit out there. Impatiently, he warns that if they don't come out, he'll consider it an attack. Then, a mysterious figure with a huge sword emerges from the trees. The escort leader is confused, as he wasn't expecting that all of a sudden. The man introduces himself as Pang Dejuk from the Pang clan of Hubei. Baihang also introduces himself and asks what a man like him is doing there. Dojuk then explains that he's being pursued and desperately asks for help. He says his enemies could become a threat to the Jiangyu. The story then returns to the present with the confused historian and the mad dog explaining. Because that's how he met the guy who slammed the door in the historian's face. The man's name was Pang Dojuk, a well-known warrior to everyone. At that moment, our hero, who was lying on the cart, was observing everything. And little did he know that this encounter would bring great trouble for everyone. Our protagonist could only think about what was happening. He never imagined that this encounter would lead him into a river of misfortune. Dojuk then explains that the Pang family might be strong, but someone surpasses them. He then asks for help to get out of the mountain and promises a great reward. The escort leader agrees and tells him to hide inside one of the barrels. Our hero just watches the scene with a look of pure boredom and disinterest. With the lid in hand, the man tells Dojuk to get in, and he thanks him for the help. The leader also warns him not to make any noise, and our guy just observes. Our protagonist then thinks he's a softie for helping, but in the end, he admits he doesn't hate that side of the escort leader. From inside the barrel, Dojuk apologizes for dragging them into danger and promises a reward. But our hero complains that the reward is useless if they all end up taken out. Dojuk then gets angry and says our guy has no shame for risking everyone's lives. Leader Bihang tells them both to stop talking and be quiet as the cart moves on. With a serious expression, the escort leader continues on the path through the mountain. He then feels relieved, thinking he has finally escaped the pursuers. However, suddenly a man in green appears and stops the cart, sending the men flying. In seconds, they are completely surrounded by a group of masked warriors. Their leader then approaches with his sword and a very threatening aura. Bihang is shocked because he recognizes the group as the bandits of the Green Forest. He then introduces himself and greets the heroes of the Green Forest with respect. The leader asks if they've seen a young man in red, but Bihang denies it on the spot. Suspicious, the man threatens them, saying if they're lying, they won't leave there unscathed. Bihang says his agency has good relations with them and wouldn't risk everything for a stranger. However, one of the bandits points to the cart and asks what that thing is. With a bored look, our hero says he's the escort item for the mission. The bandits and the escort men are confused by what he said. Leader Bihang then makes up a story that our guy is weak and sick, and that they're taking him to a clinic. He still tries to calm the situation, saying there's no reason to fight the Green Forest. However, the bandit leader says the problem has already started because of the jerk on the cart. Our protagonist then shows his clothes and says he's not wearing red like the wanted man. Annoyed, the bandit puts the knife to Bihang's throat and asks if he's mocking him. The escort leader then realizes they already knew that Pang Dojuk was hiding there. The bandit then says he'll take them out one by one until he finds the man he's looking for, and the first one chosen to go is one of the escort men, who panics. The bandit then asks if he's seen a young man in red, and the man doesn't know what to say. With his life on the line, the poor man trembles in fear and says he hasn't seen anyone. Without hesitation, the bandit prepares to finish him, but the escort leader stops him. Bihang then shouts that the man they're looking for is right there with them. Everyone is shocked by the revelation, and the bandit leader stares at him in surprise. The Green Forest bandits then surround the escort men, who prepare for the worst. However, our hero remains with his arms crossed on the cart, not caring about the commotion. The bandit leader gets furious and asks what the escort leader just said. And with a kick to the barrel, our protagonist reveals that the man they're looking for is there. He then points to the barrel and says the man they're so eagerly looking for is hiding. With a bored look, our hero even complains about that jerk Pang. He then kicks the barrel and tells Dojuk to come out because it's not worth it to perish for someone. From inside, the man shouts and asks why our guy waited so long to come out. With no other choice, Pang Dojuk finally comes out of his hiding spot in the barrel. The bandit leader then scoffs at him for trying to be the hero at the end of the story. However, Dojuk shouts that he won't let innocent people get taken out because of him. He then thanks them for their help, and tells the escort to leave because the bandits only want him. However, the bandit leader reveals that they couldn't have avoided them anyway. Leader Bihang wishes him good luck and tells his men to get out of there as fast as possible. But the bandit chief shouts for them to wait because the mess isn't over yet. The bandit leader then says they can't leave, and the escort chief is confused. Our hero then explains that they don't want to fight with the Pang family, and to prevent the news from spreading, the bandits will take everyone out to silence them. The bandit chief agrees with the logic and admits he hadn't thought of that. Leader Bihang freaks out and calls our protagonist a crazy jerk for revealing the plan. Pang Dojuk then says he'll take responsibility and handle everything himself. But our guy scoffs and says he's bragging after dragging them into this mess. and he even calls him a drowning man who's pulling everyone down with him. Because either way, the bandits already know who they are, and everyone would perish. So, our hero says they need to fight because at least Dojuk will fight alongside them. The bandit leader then gets tired of repeating himself and asks if they really aren't going to leave. With no more patience, he simply orders his men to attack with everything they've got. And he even shouts not to blame him for the fallen as the battle begins. With a powerful blow, the bandit chief attacks Pang Dojuk with his sword. Dojuk blocks the attack and realizes that the martial world is truly vast. And if he had known that, he would have never set foot in that dangerous world. Because ever since he was praised as a rising star, arrogance had poisoned him. He then realizes that all of this is his fault, and that everyone is going to meet their end. The battle continues, and the escort men and Dojuk fight with all their might. One of the bandits then says it's over and prepares for the final blow. Hopeless, Dojuk apologizes to everyone because he knows he can't win. Suddenly, one of the bandits is hit by an energy blast and sent flying. The man falls defeated, and his sword and ring fly through the air with the force of the attack. Dojuk then looks to the side and sees our hero sitting on the cart with a bowl in his hand. Our protagonist then says they are a true work of art. The bandits are confused and don't understand what just happened. Dojuk then turns and realizes that the thing that knocked out the enemy was the bowl that our hero threw with absurd force and precision. Our guy then tells Dojuk not to get distracted and to get back to the fight. And he complains that he brought the enemies and is going to get taken out without even putting up a proper fight. Our hero then warns that at this rate, he'll end up done for, and the escort man is confused. With a kick, our protagonist sends one of the bandits flying with his blue energy. Dojuk is shocked and wonders what the heck our hero is doing there. And he's not the only one, as the bandits are also completely clueless about the situation. With no time for curiosity, Dojuk composes himself and prepares to fight with everything he's got. With a pink aura, he fills himself with energy to face the enemies. Using his 5 tigers destroying blade technique, he attacks the bandits. And with a single blow, he manages to knock down several of them at once. The enemies are sent flying with the force of the attack. But it doesn't seem to be enough. Dojuk realizes it's not a duel and that he doesn't need to try to dodge or block. Surrounded on all sides, he accepts that he's going to meet his end there in that battle. With several energy blasts, our hero starts taking down the bandits one by one. Dojuk then shouts for our protagonist to just drop dead and stop showing off. He even tells him to get down and help him in the fight, because the situation is really bad. But our hero says he's an item to be transported, and that he has nothing to do with the fight. The escort leader freaks out and asks why our hero is going along with the situation. But our guy says a mean girl warned him not to cause trouble. The leader then begs for help, and our hero says he tends to keep his promises. He even teases him, asking if he won't feel uncomfortable if they all perish. The leader then offers rest and food in the next town, and our guy gets excited. Desperate, the man begs for help and calls our hero a blockhead. Pang Dojuk doesn't understand any of the strange conversation that's happening. Our protagonist then asks if he promises, and the man confirms on the spot. So our hero opens his box of bowls and prepares to join the fight. With a smile, he envelopes himself in a blue aura and attacks the bandits. The enemies are hit by a shower of energy bowls and fall one by one. Dojuk is shocked by the scene and can't believe what he's seeing. In seconds, all the Green Forest bandits are defeated by our guy. The bandit leader then realizes that our hero is a martial master. With his hands on his head, our protagonist approaches the two to talk. Pang Dojuk is recovering a bit when the Green Forest bandit leader shows up to bother him. Moreover, the leader seems annoyed with the current situation. Our guy arrives and confronts Dojuk with a lot of anger, claiming the young man always causes trouble and that he was tired of this kind of situation. He continues to scold Dojuk for his weak performance and lack of attention. Furthermore, his attitude really annoys him, which is why he confronts him. Dojuk tries to defend himself, insisting it wasn't entirely his fault, but our protagonist doesn't care and cuts him off, saying he always stirs up trouble. The Green Forest bandit leader tries to attack our hero, but does so carelessly, showing he's not a threat. The bandit is quickly defeated with a punch, and right after, our protagonist ignores him, walking toward Dojuk without a word. Yanho looks at Dojuk and beckons him to go somewhere else with him, and the young man just nods, a mix of fear and resignation. They are walking through the forest, when suddenly our guy feels something strange, and then they both stop, alert to what's coming. Suddenly, a shower of arrows begins to fall on them, but they manage to dodge in time, showing great skill and reflexes. The place is infested with bandits, and they are outnumbered, but they soon decide the best option is to fight their way out. They prepare to face the bandits, and our guy quickly takes the lead, showing he's ready for any challenge that comes. Our guy and Dojuk attack together, and each uses their skills to defeat the bandits, demonstrating great synergy in the fight. They are fighting the bandits, and he's already defeating several of them. But there are still many, so they have to keep fighting. The fight continues intensely, and they demonstrate great strength and skill, with our protagonist proving to be a true warrior, capable of overcoming any obstacle. After the fight, they manage to defeat all the bandits and finally escape, showing that perseverance and teamwork can overcome any challenge. With a determined look, Dajuk prepares to attack, but the bandits retreat. Their leader then warns that they will be back later and flees with his men. Dajuk is confused, and our hero complains that the situation is very frustrating. The warrior then thanks everyone, and the escort leader says it was easy thanks to him. The other men also thank him and say they will never forget that he saved their lives. But our protagonist asks if the gratitude will be only verbal, leaving everyone awkward. He then says he's kidding, and that he'll take what he wants from the Pain Clan jerk. But leader Bihung asks why he was so cold to the warrior Dajuk. Our hero then calls him over, and the escort leader approaches, a bit suspicious. Yeonho explains that they would have perished if he hadn't been there, because of that guy. The leader agrees but says Dajuk seemed to have his reasons and was doing something good. Our guy then asks if doing something good justifies what he was doing, and the escort leader is left speechless by the question and our hero's argument. Yeonho then reveals that his master taught him to prioritize himself and not risk his life for nothing, and even though justice is important, he prefers to be happy before others. Leader Bahang asks if our hero wasn't hurt to take care of the warrior. However, he says the Murim Alliance is the one that should take care of the Green Forest. Our guy then says his goodbyes, and the escort leader hopes they see each other again. But Bihung doubts that will happen, and the young man tells him not to be pessimistic. With one last goodbye, our hero departs and leaves the escort leader behind. The man then reflects that it would be good if he were a little more disciplined. Finally, our protagonist arrives at his destination, the Mansion of Nature's Hand, which is actually the Wee clan of Guangdong, the home of our lazy guy. Meanwhile, his parents, Wee Jung and Han Sang, couldn't find him. The mother still has hope, but the father wonders where Yeonho is. Suddenly, a servant runs in and shouts that there's an urgent message. It turns out that the young master Wee Yeonho has finally sent a letter home. Far away, the eunuch's son Nok Mokpung laments that his simple plan failed. His father asks if he was afraid of perishing, but the young man denies it. He doesn't fear the end, but a meaningless one. The mysterious master then warns Mokpung not to keep useless dogs by his side. Afraid, the young man promises he will remember, and the master tells him to leave. The man then reflects that in the end, he will have to enter the forest anyway. Suddenly, the eunuch Nokji appears and calls him a useless, ambitious pig. He even complains that the eunuch doesn't know his place in that hierarchy. A servant then advises that Nokji still has value and should be kept alive. The man then meets with Nokji, who receives him with a serious expression. The eunuch complains about having to flatter a fool, but the servant says he has other duties. He then reveals that there's a summons from the main estate for him to return. With a malicious smile, the man says he can finally get rid of that disguise. And with a bizarre transformation, he reveals himself as someone completely different. The servant then says Nokji will be discarded and that everything he owns will be theirs. The man asks what his brothers are doing, and the servant talks about the medical clan. Apparently, they recently moved from the Confucian faction to the medical clan, and all this happens on the grounds of the Lustrous Hand, a very mysterious place. Our hero arrives at a place, and the man says he's come to the wrong place, because the letter is for the Sacred Hand grounds, but this is the Lustrous Hand grounds. We remember that the scholar Yuan gave him the letter to go to the famous medical clan. The man then explains that this is also a sacred ground, but not the one he's looking for. Our guy then realizes this isn't it and leaves to find the right place. On the way, he hears someone begging the Lord to save his wife. However, a doctor refuses treatment because they don't have the money to pay. Our hero reflects that the medical clan should be saving lives, not denying help, but he sees that in the end, it all comes down to money, even for doctors. He then ignores the scene and follows the instructions to find the right place. Finally, he finds a sign that says Sacred Hand Grounds, and he wonders if this is really the 500-year-old medical clan he was looking for. Without hesitation, our protagonist enters and asks if anyone is there. Suddenly, a child appears and asks what brings him to that place. Our guy then asks to see the chief, and the boy tells him to speak up because he is the chief. Our hero then gets angry and asks why the boy told him to speak up. The child then reveals that his father passed away, and now he is the clan chief. Our protagonist freaks out upon learning that the chief is a child and complains about his master. Suddenly, a young woman appears and asks what's happening there. The boy explains that a guest has arrived to see their father, and she is surprised. The young woman then introduces herself as Jin Yeren and asks what business he had with her father. Our hero gets awkward and stammers upon seeing the young woman's beauty. Without further ado, he hands over the letter of recommendation from Scholar Mun. After reading it, Yaren understands that he came to learn from the medical clan. Our guy confirms, and she explains that the clan is no longer in a condition to present itself. However, she invites him to stay because it would be a shame to turn away a guest. Our hero tries to refuse, but the young woman insists because the world would look down on them. Despite his insistence, he tries to leave, but the young woman shouts that she will never let him go. With no other choice, our protagonist is taken to a room to stay. There, he reflects that he should have been more alert when he heard about Scholar Mun. Our hero then throws himself on the bed and says that since it's a doctor's house, he can stay. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, and our protagonist answers, half asleep. And to his surprise, the young Yaren appears with a huge feast for him. She says she thought he was hungry, and our guy is shocked by the amount. He then invites her to eat, but the young woman says she has already eaten and tells him to enjoy. Our hero then thinks they aren't as poor as he imagined, but he overhears her brother Jin So asking how his sister got all that food, and she reveals that there's no more rice at home, and the boy worries about her necklace. He freaks out and asks if she sold their mother's memento to pay for the food. The young woman then explains that she only pawned it, and will get it back when things get better. Our guy then feels guilty and says he can't eat that meal. Yaren offers to bring a new meal, but he says that's not why. In the end, he eats everything and feels bloated for having overeaten. He even reflects that the woman could have offered what she had instead of going to such lengths. And with that in mind, our hero decides to go to the Silver River pawn shop. Our hero then says he's there to retrieve an item left by the medical clan. The man invites him in, and our protagonist explains about the jade necklace. However, the manager Hei Daebung says the item has been pawned and cannot be returned. Our guy says he's from the sacred grounds, but the man doesn't recognize him. He then offers a bag of silver, but the manager says it's not enough. Our hero is shocked because there were more than 2 taels of silver in there. Hei Daebung explains that the young woman borrowed 1 tael, and they charge 3 times more. Our protagonist calls this usury, but the man says it's the house rule. He then asks if he can't redeem it with the money, but the answer is no. Our guy realizes the young woman would never get the necklace back that way. He then asks if he can pawn an item, and the man explains the rules. So, our hero offers his gold item and asks to borrow the rest of the money. The manager analyzes the item and offers 1 tael of gold, but the repayment would be 3. However, upon seeing the seal on the object, he freaks out and can't believe his eyes. It turns out the item was from the Royal Inspectorate, and was worth much more than 1 tael of gold. Our hero then asks about the 3 taels of gold, and the manager freaks out because he's screwed. The scene cuts to a man who says there's a problem with their plan. He then reveals that they failed to take the palace because Nokja didn't listen to them. It turns out the royal inspectors reduced Nakia's influence, and they had to give up. Furthermore, the Pain clan got involved in the mess with the Green Forest. But it seems it was the Miram Alliance, and they didn't notice the larger plan behind it. The master then says problems happen, and that the key is how to solve them. The matters with the doctors are going well, and it's almost time to tie the knot. They have built enough power to show the world how terrible their sword is. The scene returns to the pawnshop manager, who freaks out upon seeing the item. It turns out that it was an official seal of a very powerful royal inspector. Our guy asks about the 3 gold Nyang, and the man realizes he's screwed. Hei Daebung then throws himself on the floor and apologizes for not recognizing our hero. He wonders what he should fix first, the theft of the necklace or the interest rate. Desperate, the manager tries to explain, but our guy doesn't seem to care. Our hero then asks what the annual interest rate is, and the manager gets awkward. With a nervous smile, he reveals that the rate is a maximum of 60%. Our guy freaks out because he's never heard of such high interest, and the manager tries to explain. He says the white jade is worth 10 silver Nyang, but our hero reminds him that he previously said 1. The manager then panics and doesn't know what to say to get out of the mess. In a panic, the manager, Hei Daebung, screams and orders the doors to be locked because he's seeing this through to the end. Meanwhile, at the Sacred Hand Manor, our hero arrives to sort out the necklace problem. Inside, the young Jinyiran is in her room, peacefully writing something. Suddenly, she hears a knock on the door and wonders who it could be at this hour. Upon opening it, she finds her mother's jade necklace with a mysterious note left there. Holding the object, the young woman remembers her mother and gets pretty emotional at the scene. The girl then looks around, wondering who could have left that for her. And on the roof, our hero watches the scene from afar, as he was the one who returned the necklace. With a smile, he hopes this will finally pay for the meal he ate. The scene then cuts to the pavilion of the Orthodox Miram Alliance's chief strategist. Inside we find Pang Dejuk, who seems very nervous and unsure of what to do. He then wonders why he's there and admits he's done a lot of messed up things. Suddenly, a mysterious man approaches and stares him down with a very serious look. The man then invites him to sit, and a terrified Dejuk accepts. And this man is Zhou Yuan, the divine strategist of the Orthodox Mirim Alliance. Sitting in front of the strategist, Dejuk wonders why he was summoned. Zhou Yuan then reveals that the enemies who attacked him were the 10 Swords of the Green Forest. Dejuk freaks out upon hearing the name, now understanding why the fight was so tough. The strategist says that thanks to this, they can expose something bigger, but the problem is the young man who helped him, because even though Dejuk is strong, he couldn't handle one of them, and yet our hero defeated all 10. Intrigued, he asks for the young man's name, and Dejuk reveals it's Wai Yaonho. Upon hearing the name, the strategist remembers seeing it in a message from the Beggar's sect. He then wonders if the second son of the Wei clan returned with so much power in just 5 years. And since the eldest son is also strong, the Wei clan could become the center of the chaos. Zhou Yuan then wants to know where our hero went, and Dejuk says he went to the Sacred Hand Manor. Looking at the map, he finds it strange that Yaonho went to Hubei instead of returning home. Therefore he needs more information, and since Dejuk was the only one who saw him, he must help. With a serious look, the strategist asks for the young man's help in finding our protagonist. Dejuk agrees immediately and bows respectfully, accepting the mission he was given. And with a determined look, he prepares to go after our hero, no matter the cost. With determination, Pang Dejuk swears he will find our hero again. Meanwhile, Jin-So sees our boy on the roof and doubts he's a martial artist. The boy is then certain that our protagonist only learned the basics of martial arts. Suddenly, a noise at the front door catches the young doctor's attention. It was workers from a quarry who were hit by a massive rock. One of the men begs for help, as they have no money to pay for treatment. Unsure of what to do, Jin-So freezes up, and his sister Jin-Yeon scolds him on the spot. She then takes charge of the situation and orders the patients to be brought inside. She starts organizing everything, telling them to separate the patients by urgency. The young woman also tells her brother to take the less injured and prepare hot water. Our hero wakes up from the commotion and wonders what's going on. Calmly, Jin-Yeon begins to treat the most urgent patients on the floor. She then prepares her acupuncture needles to begin the treatment. With one of the needles in hand, she gets ready to use her skills. And with great precision, the young woman begins to apply acupuncture to the injured man. The acupuncture takes effect, and the man immediately spits out a red liquid. Despite getting covered in it, the young Yeran remains completely focused on the treatment. She then yells at her brother So, hurrying him to take care of the other patients. However, the boy panics because he can't help one of the men. He then looks up at the roof and screams for our hero's help. The young doctor asks for help, because since our boy is from the Mirim, he must know about pressure points. But our protagonist gets all awkward because he didn't learn properly and doesn't know what to do. With no time to waste, So gives exact instructions on which points he needs to stimulate. Our hero tries to follow the orders, but the patient starts reacting very strangely. The doctor flips out, yelling that he's useless and doing everything wrong. After the scolding, the man finally starts breathing, and our boy notices the change. Our hero explains that his airways are no longer blocked, and he just needs to cough. And to everyone's surprise, he tells the doctor to suck the rest out with his mouth since they're in a hurry. Our boy is horrified by the idea and asks if there's another way, but So says no. So he understands what to do and complains about being chewed out for nothing earlier. Without hesitation, our hero grabs the man and begins the procedure. The young Dr. So is shocked and doesn't understand what he's doing. With a blue aura, our protagonist uses his energy to save the man. The boy can't believe his eyes and is completely terrified by the scene. Our hero then says he's just saving this poor man's life. The scene then cuts to Yaonho's older brother, Sanho, under the moonlight. He receives a letter and asks if it was his mother who sent it. His mother, Han Sang-ah, then explains that the matter is urgent and cannot wait. In the letter, she reveals the news everyone was waiting for: Yaonho is finally alive. Sanho is shocked, because after 5 years, he has finally received news of his brother. His parents then decide they will look for him, as he cannot return home. The letter came from the Kaifeng branch of the Hao sect, and that's where they are heading. Sanho is relieved to know that his younger brother is finally alive, but he knows it's no time to get emotional and that he needs to act quickly. Thus, the older brother also sets off for Kaifeng to find our hero. Sanho then says that Jangil the beggar is in Kaifeng and heads off to find him. With a blue aura and a determined look, he prepares for the mission. Later, Jin-So knocks on our hero's door to talk to him. Our boy then complains that the doctor doesn't trust people like him. The young man corrects himself and says he was a great help, and our protagonist agrees. Jin-So then asks what the biggest problem of their medical clan is right now. Our hero is confused because there are many problems, not just one. The boy reveals that he wants to restore the clan's glory and needs an outsider's perspective. Our protagonist then reflects and asks what the biggest problem of all would be. And with a smile, he answers that their biggest problem is a lack of money. The young So is shocked by the answer, and our hero repeats it more firmly. The boy says that medicine is more important, but our protagonist disagrees. He then explains that their downfall was because of the place of the big shot doctors. The young doctor then sighs and seems to understand what he's getting at. He reveals that his father was a very friendly man who had no enemies. He didn't charge the poor anything, even if the treatment was very expensive. This was only possible because of the wealth they had accumulated over generations. But the gold ran out, and by the time the young doctor grew up, there was nothing left. Furthermore, they spent a lot on the doctors who worked for them. His father realized the method wasn't sustainable and needed to pay off the debt. Our hero then guesses he was scammed or something, but the boy denies it. The young man then reveals that the solution was something high risk to make quick money. And to everyone's surprise, the solution his father found was gambling. Our protagonist freaks out upon learning that he gambled to pay off debts and brought the family to ruin. Our hero then wants to know how to revive the clan, and the boy asks, why him? He then says that our boy is no ordinary person for having come from Scholar Mun. But our protagonist says he's just a regular guy, and that he should ask a professional. So he takes him to Daefeng, the pawnshop owner who treated him badly. Our boy then proposes that he invest in the Sacred Hand Minor. He explains that they have the medical skills but not the administrative ones. The pawnshop owner reflects that it would definitely be possible to make money. However, our hero says he doesn't want to work with him, but the young doctor insists. The boy is offended at having to work with a loan shark, and the man flips out in anger. Our protagonist then asks where he thinks their clan's fame came from. Because their ancestors built a grand pavilion with money from patients. The young doctor is doubtful, but our hero confirms it's all true. He then explains that to have pride, they need to bring in money and a pavilion. Our boy adds that all famous doctors are very rich. The young doctor becomes thoughtful, as he believed medicine was only about people. The scene then cuts to the medical clan with a much calmer atmosphere. Young So seems to have understood our protagonist's entire lesson. Back in the room, our hero wonders if he was too blunt with the boy, but he quickly forgets about it, as it's none of his business, and decides to sleep. Suddenly, the door bursts open, and someone yells for him to come out immediately. Our protagonist wakes up startled, wondering what the heck is going on. A man bursts into the place, yelling that he wants to speak with the owner, Jin Yiren. This man is Juajil of the Black Earth, and he's looking for the clan's matriarch. Yiren appears and asks why he is dragging one of her patients. The man then recognizes her, and the young woman accuses him of having no empathy. He then reveals that her father borrowed money, and she needs to pay it back. The young woman tells him to talk to her, not the patients who have nothing to do with it. Jujiol then attacks her, but one of the workers stops him from hurting her. However, the man is very strong and manages to grab the young doctor with ease. With a creepy look, he gets close to her and reveals his evil plan. He says he will sell her to pay off the debt because she is very beautiful. Young So lunges at him with a piece of wood to save his sister, but Juajil is much stronger and throws the boy aside without any effort. The young Yiren then screams her brother's name in despair as he lies on the ground. The man even scoffs, saying her brother should worry about making money. But the other workers team up and try to stop him from taking her away. One of the men then bites Juajil's arm with all his strength. Furious, the man tries to shake him off, but the worker doesn't let go. Yiren then yells for them to stop, as this problem isn't theirs. Seeing that there's no other way, she gives up and says she'll go with him willingly. The man then laughs and gladly accepts her offer. Young So is shocked by her decision and doesn't understand what she means. She then comforts him, telling him not to worry because she will pay the debt. So the man takes her away, and the others are left there, desperate and unable to help. Everyone cries and shouts the doctor's name as she is taken away by the villain. But suddenly, a mysterious voice tells him to wait before leaving. And out of nowhere, our hero appears and tells the young woman she can't go. Juajil is furious with the intrusion and asks who the heck he is. All tangled up in his bedsheets, our protagonist finally reveals himself to everyone. With a serious look, he introduces himself and says his name is Wei Yanho. The man is confused and wonders if he's stupid for showing up like that. Our hero then says he can't take her, and Juajil gets furious. The man gets angry and asks what the heck is wrong with him. And our protagonist reveals that if he takes her, there will be no one to cook his food. Juajil asks if she was the one who cooked for him, and our boy confirms it. Furious, the man asks if he's stupid and calls him a clueless beggar. With no more patience, he decides he's gonna make our hero never eat again. The young Yiren tries to stop him, but our boy is much faster. With a single blow, he sends the man to the ground and destroys everything around them. The girl is shocked by our protagonist's strength and can't believe her eyes. Everyone present is left speechless by the scene they just witnessed. Our hero then apologizes and says it wasn't his intention to do that. Joajil gets up and faces our protagonist with a very serious look. He then asks where he's from, but our boy says he's not a master. With a bored expression, our protagonist prepares for the next confrontation. The man says they have a contract, but our hero doesn't seem to care. Joajil tells our hero not to intervene, but he refuses on the spot. Our protagonist then repeats that he needs someone to cook for him. The man realizes it's just an excuse, and that he's going to help them anyway. He then warns that the Black Earth Branch sect will not let this slide. Our hero says he doesn't want to interrupt, but the issue here is the money. Joajil then asks if he is going to pay the clan's debt for them. Young So says he will get the money in 2 weeks and tells the man to leave. Our protagonist trusts that he will keep his promise, and the man agrees. Later, Joajil tells his master that there was a martial artist at the manor, but the man reveals that our hero introduced himself only as a guest. The sect leader, Guak Dozan, is shocked because he didn't expect a guest there. He then reflects that an acquaintance of the former master complicates things. The master accuses him of running away in fear, but Joajil denies it immediately. He then explains that our hero promised to pay the debt in 2 weeks. The leader flips out and asks if he sent the man to collect their debt. The sect leader yells that he was supposed to use the debt as an excuse to finish them off. Joajil tries to explain, but the master doesn't want to hear any excuses. With no more patience, the sect leader flips out and threatens to rip out his tongue. He also says that if the plan fails, they will be reduced to ashes. But in the end, the master decides it's not worth provoking a martial artist like our hero, so he orders Joajil to keep an eye on him for now. Back in the room, Young So asks what our boy is going to do about the debt. He then remembers the promise, but our hero plays dumb. The doctor flips out because he didn't have a plan, and our boy says he has one. He then reveals that his plan is an old method for dealing with loan sharks. The young man is curious, and our protagonist reveals that the solution is to run away at night. The doctor flips out and throws a pillow at him for joking about something so serious. Our hero then asks the amount of the debt, so he can think of something. The boy guesses it's about 20 gold nying, and our protagonist is shocked. The young man also reveals that it used to be over 100, but they paid it off with their savings. Our hero then says the debt is ridiculous, and the boy agrees immediately. Without further ado, our protagonist calls him to go solve the problem. He then says they will get money with eye for an eye, philosophy. The young doctor is confused and doesn't understand a thing he's saying. And our hero reveals that the method to get money is quite simple. It will be the same one his father used, which led the whole family to ruin. With a determined look, our boy reveals that the solution is gambling. At the Golden Flower Manor, Master Kang Qianlip complains about his bad luck. He then wonders if it's because they tricked the Sacred Hand Manor in the past. Suddenly, one of his men comes running, calling him master. The man then reports that a big, clueless whale has arrived for them. The scene cuts to our hero and the young doctor arriving at the gambling den. People wonder if it's right for him to try to pay off the debt by gambling. Suddenly, a man approaches and calls him young master, all excited, and with a fake smile. He says that our hero is surely there to have some fun. Our hero then asks what he should do, and the man tells him not to be so formal. With a fake smile, the man extends his hand, and our protagonist backs away. He then explains that they have all sorts of games with dice and cups there. The man then guides him to one of the tables to show him a special game. He introduces the game with 2 cups and some shiny stones. Our hero thinks it looks like dice, but the man says its name is yin and yang. With a cup in hand, he explains that the game is very simple and very popular. He then places the stones inside the cup and starts shaking it all up. The stones are divided between the 2 cups with the movement he makes. He then places one of the cups on the table and prepares the final move. And the rule is simple, just guess if the number of stones is even or odd. Our boy thinks it's very easy, and the man agrees with a smile. He also explains that it's perfect for his impatient personality. With a smile, our protagonist agrees and says he'll play that one. From afar, the master of the gambling den watches everything and says he's doing well. The master then reveals his plan to let him win, so he gets hooked. He also notes that our hero seems to be having a lot of fun with the game. But suddenly, the man freaks out when he sees that the house is being taken to the cleaners. The master can't believe it and sees our hero winning rivers of money on the bets. With a bored expression, our protagonist keeps winning nonstop. And with another winning bet, he wonders what the heck is happening. The scene then cuts to the leader of the beggars sect, Jang Il, looking very happy. He then finds a pair of sturdy doors that someone threw out. But suddenly, the door explodes, and someone glares at him with a deathly stare. From the middle of the smoke, a man asks if it's true that our hero is alive. And to everyone's surprise, this man is Yunho's older brother Sanho. The poor beggar Jang-il is completely terrified by his appearance. Sanho then grabs him by the collar and asks if Yunho is really alive. The beggar confirms it and asks him to calm down and let him go. With a serious look, the older brother wants to know where our protagonist is. The beggar then says the information is from the Hao sect and tells him to ask them. Without further ado, Sanho grabs him and drags him to the Hao sect by force. Jang-il complains about the brothers but has no choice but to take him there. Arriving at the Kaifeng branch of the Hao sect, the beggar seems quite nervous. The leader, Gai Nang, freaks out when she sees he brought our hero's older brother. Jang-il panics, and the two start arguing in the middle of the chaos. At the gambling den, the bet reaches 1,000 gold coins, leaving everyone shocked. Our hero's opponent starts to sweat, as it's the biggest bet he's ever seen. Our protagonist then points to the cup and says the number is even, and since he's already won 9 times in a row, the opponent gets very nervous. Upon revealing the stones, the number is 4, and our hero wins once again. Everyone celebrates and calls him the god of gambling for winning so many times in a row. Young So celebrates the victory, and our protagonist winks at him excitedly. Our hero then reveals that his training taught him to dodge pebbles in his sleep, and with this skill, he can tell if the number is even or odd just by the sound. Our hero then says it's better to stop now, but he needs just one more. Suddenly, the master of the gambling den approaches and watches him intently. Kang Qianlip then calls him an important guest, but our hero denies it. With a bored expression, our protagonist says he's just an ordinary guy. The master then says that interesting games make him an important guest. However, our hero scoffs and says he didn't find the game interesting at all. The man then invites him to a better place with a bigger stage, and with a smile, he reveals that the real game hasn't even started yet. Our protagonist seems intrigued by the proposal but says nothing. But in the end, our hero refuses and tells Young So to get their things. The master is shocked and wonders if he's going to take all the money and leave. He then stops him and offers 5 gold Niang for him to play in the bigger games. Our boy asks if that's all, and the master confirms with a smile. The man then agrees to give 10, but with a special condition. The game will only end when one side runs out of all their money. With a smile, the master says he's fallen into the trap and calls for his opponent. Suddenly, a mysterious man appears and everyone recognizes him instantly. This man is Dak Bai, the one-armed king of gambling, and he faces our hero. He then asks if our boy won all that just by playing yin and yang. Our protagonist doesn't look like a gambler, and Dak Bai eyes him with suspicion. But he explains that what makes a gambler is winning big, not their appearance. Our hero then asks what they're going to play, and the man confirms the duel. Dak Bai then recommends a dice game and throws several of them onto the table. He says it's the fairest game and that it reveals true skills. Young So despairs knowing that no one can beat Dak Bai. The rule of the game is simple: whoever rolls the highest number on the dice wins. Our protagonist then agrees to play and the duel finally begins. The stakes will double each round, and he can add more money if he loses. And if one side loses everything, the winner decides whether to continue the game. With a determined look, our hero agrees to the rules and gets ready. With an excited announcement, the master of the gambling den starts the match. Young So asks if he'll do well, and our hero scoffs at the question. However, to everyone's surprise, this is already the 10th time our boy has lost. The doctor freaks out because at this rate they'll end up bankrupt, and he calls our hero a bastard. Dak Bai then announces that this will be the final round, and the bet is 2,000 Niang. People start mocking our protagonist because he has lost all his money. Dak Bai then rolls the dice and prepares for the final blow against our hero. With a bored expression, our protagonist watches the roll, unfazed. And to everyone's surprise, the king of gambling rolls the maximum number on all the dice. Everyone cheers and shouts that he's incredible. As expected, no one beats him. Dak Bai then asks if he wants to continue, but our hero doesn't answer. Young So says the winner has already been decided, but our boy ignores him. Our protagonist then asks if the young doctor truly trusts him. With a pat on the head, he says no one had ever said that to him before. And with a determined look, our hero prepares for the 40 gold Niang bet. With a confident look, our hero rolls the dice and prepares to win. Dak Bai smiles, certain that victory is already his and there's no way he can lose. Everyone present is shocked by the roll and can't believe what they're seeing. And to everyone's surprise, our hero rolls the lowest number on all the dice. Our protagonist then freaks out and curses his opponent for winning again. The scene cuts to the leader of the Black Earth Branch sect with his master. He says he still hasn't figured out the identity of our mysterious hero. The master then thinks of a young man with martial arts skills, and without hesitation, he orders his servant to finish our protagonist. Even without knowing the boy's strength, the master doesn't want to leave any loose ends. The master then says he will give him more martial artists so he won't fail, and he orders him to go immediately and take care of our hero once and for all. Our protagonist then reflects on the situation and becomes very thoughtful. Everyone present is shocked by the roll and can't believe what they're seeing, and to everyone's surprise our hero rolls the lowest number on all the dice. Dokbai then scoffs, saying our hero was very unlucky to lose. Young So despairs and wonders what will happen to them now. The master then says that since he has no more money, he needs to pay the 10 Nyang. But our hero says he wants to know how much he needs to keep playing, and with a smile he asks if he can continue if he has 40 Nyang. The master agrees and says they decide, but he can continue if he has the money. Our protagonist then asks if they can promise, and the man agrees. So our hero signals for someone to enter, and a person appears with a lot of money. And to everyone's surprise, the person who arrives is Hadaefeng with 2 trays of gold. Our boy complains about him being late, but the man says he would never let him become a slave. The master of the gambling den then recognizes Hadaefeng and wonders why he's there. The pawnshop owner greets him and says he's there with the money the guest requested. Our protagonist then remembers the promise and that the minimum bet is double. The master of the gambling den flips out upon hearing that he wants to add more money, and with a serious look, our hero announces that the next bet is 100 gold Nyang. The master of the gambling den flips out at the bet, and our hero asks if he's scared. He then asks Dokbai if he can win, and the man says yes. So the master trusts his best player and prepares for the bet. The game continues and Dokbai thinks it's all part of a bigger plan. He then asks if our hero lost on purpose, but he denies it immediately. Our protagonist then reveals that his mother taught him to always have a lot of money. Dokbai falls silent, seemingly understanding our boy's logic. Our hero then asks if he can start playing, and the man agrees. With a quick movement, he rolls the dice and prepares for the great comeback. The dice land on the table, and the result shocks everyone present. Our protagonist manages to roll a 6 on 5 of the 6 dice in the throw. Everyone is in shock at the throw, and the tension mounts for the last die. The 6th die then reveals its number, showing that luck was on his side, and with a 5 instead of a 6, everyone cheers because the throw was incredible. Dokbai then laments that it was just by 1 number less. Our hero then plays dumb and says that 35 is a high number. Dokbai is furious and says our boy underestimated him during the game. With a determined look, he rolls the dice and says he'll show why he's the king. And to everyone's surprise, he manages to roll a 6 on 5 of the 6 dice. Everyone cheers because as expected, the king of gambling never disappoints. Young So freaks out in despair, but our hero remains very calm. The doctor doesn't understand his calmness, because if they lose, they'll be completely bankrupt. Our protagonist then asks if his sister is good at dancing, and the boy flips out. Dokbai's last die then spins and stops on an unexpected number. And to everyone's shock, the number revealed is a 4, not a 6. Everyone celebrates our hero's victory by just 1 point. Young So is shocked because our protagonist is the first to win so much. The man who attended to him then hugs him and celebrates the 100 Nyang victory. The master of the gambling den freaks out in anger upon seeing his best player lose. He then approaches and scolds him for saying he could win. Dokbai then admits that our hero is a god of gambling, not just a king. The master of the gambling den flips out, realizing he's completely screwed. Hadaefeng then announces that the financial relationship between them is resolved, and that everyone there is a witness to the passionate game that took place. Dokbai then says goodbye, saying it was a good game despite the loss. Hadaefeng then puts the money away, and our hero agrees to let him handle it. Young So complains that he's not cut out for gambling, but our protagonist ignores him. Our hero then calls him to go eat and sleep because he's hungry. Suddenly, the boy bumps into a group of men and is startled by the scene. A mysterious group surrounds the two, and our hero is on full alert. From the symbols on their clothes, Hadaefeng recognizes the Black Earth Branch sect. Their leader then approaches and angrily asks who Wei Yanho is. The scene cuts to the leader of the Hao sect, who asks if Sanho is the older brother. He confirms it and wants to know where our hero is, but she says he went to Hubei. Sanho then thanks her for the information and says goodbye to go after his brother. Sanho then calls him to go, and the man asks where they are going. He then reveals they are going to Hubei, but the man freaks out and refuses to go. The poor guy throws himself on the ground and says he'd rather perish than go to Hubei. The leader, Guinangnang, sighs, seeming to understand the man's situation. She then asks them to rest before leaving, but Sanho refuses. The leader insists and says she will prepare a bath and food for them. The beggar flips out, saying he can't go because he'll meet his end either way. Sanho then sighs and says he has no choice but to accept the offer. So the two get in the bath and are finally able to relax a bit. The beggar then celebrates being in a bath, as his leader would end him if he saw. Suddenly, Sanho gets out of the water, and the man is shocked by his physique. With a completely muscular body, the older brother shows his strength, The beggar then compliments his body and asks about the scar on his chest. He then remembers hearing that Sanho almost didn't make it back then. But the older brother reveals that that scar is nothing compared to another one. The beggar then asks how he got that giant scar on his chest. With a smile, Sanho says it wasn't any demonic martial artist, and he reveals that the scar was made by his younger brother, Wei Yanho. And it all happened when our boy didn't yet know how terrible a sword can be. Back at the gambling den, the sect leader asks who Wei Yanho is. With a bored look, our protagonist introduces himself and says it's him. The leader then confirms with Juejio and prepares to attack. He complains that our hero is too young, but his servant says he exaggerated. Without further ado, the leader and his men draw their swords to attack. But our protagonist stops them and asks them to wait a bit. He then asks young So to sign a document, and the boy is confused. Our hero tells him to sign it quickly, explaining everything after the commotion. With the document in hand, he asks for the total amount of the clan's debt. The leader reveals the debt is 20 gold nyang and 50 silver. And to everyone's surprise, our hero opens a chest full of gold. With the gold on the table, our hero says the debt is paid and tells him to write it down. The leader laughs and asks if he thinks he can solve everything with that. Our protagonist then says that's why he added more than he owed. Juejio then reminds the boss that the goal isn't the money but the manner. The leader flips out and says he won't let them interfere with their business. With swords pointed at him, our hero asks if they want to fight. The man then laughs and says this isn't a fight, it's a punishment. Without further ado, he orders his men to bring him our boy's head. With a smile, our protagonist prepares for the punishment to come. He then warns that they will regret starting this fight. With a single blast of blue energy, our hero defeats one of the men, and with a burst of power, he sends all the others flying away. The leader is shocked by the scene and can't believe our protagonist's power. Our hero then tells him to call the men hidden in the back. The man is speechless and wonders how he knew there were more people. The leader then calls the hidden men, and they appear for the attack. A group of mysterious assassins surrounds our hero with their swords. Our protagonist thinks they look familiar and prepares to fight. One of them attacks him, and our hero dodges with a blue energy sword. He then crouches and says that startled him and was quite sudden. Our boy realizes this is a sword art specialized in killing. He then remembers his master, who taught him about this assassin's art. The old ghost then asks what he should do, and our hero doesn't know. His master then warns him not to underestimate them and to finish them off immediately. Our protagonist then decides to give it his all, as it was his master's request. He then asks to borrow a sword from Hadefeng, who hands it over at once. With the sword in hand, he warns that things are about to get loud, and with a blue aura, he asks everyone to step back for the battle. The assassins are shocked that he managed to dodge the surprise attack, and recognizing that he is a master, they decide to attack all at once. With a blast of blue energy, our hero prepares for the final attack. He then remembers his master's teachings and agrees with him. With an unshakable spirit, he attacks the assassins with his blue sword. His master then warns him not to let his mind be swayed by the sword, and that he must wield the sword with a cool head to respond to everything. With a quick movement, he dodges the attack and prepares for a counter-attack. The next step is to imbue the sword with his mentality and willpower. With a clash of blades, he shows that his sword is much stronger, because if he doesn't put himself into the steel, it won't be a true sword. With his will in the sword, he prepares for the final attack against them, and with a wave of energy, he shows the true power of his sword, because a sword with his will can even split mountains. What can be filled can also be emptied just as easily, as the earth dictates the flow of a river. He controls the power of his sword. With all his power channeled into the sword, he prepares for the final blow. The master then explains that what he taught is not a move. With a precise strike, our hero defeats one of the assassins with ease, but rather a seed that can grow and become anything, and that a perfect sword is created with the mind, not with strength. With a blue and purple aura, he prepares for the final attack against them, and with an energy sword, he shows the true power of his creation. The attack then creates several energy crosses that destroy everything around. In seconds, all the assassins are defeated by our protagonist. With his master's spirit behind him, he faces the fallen enemies, and with a final warning, he severs their Q veins so they can no longer fight. Our hero still thinks they look familiar but can't remember from where. He then decides he'll find out one day and turns to leave. The sect leader freaks out in fear as our protagonist approaches. With a yawn, our boy asks if he wasn't going to punish someone there. With a yawn, our boy asks if he wasn't going to punish someone there. Terrified, the sect leader trembles in fear and calls our hero young master. Our protagonist then says he lives by his master's words. The man throws himself to the ground and begs for forgiveness, promising to change his ways. But our boy says that changing is good, but no one will believe him now. He then decides he will take one of his eyes instead of ending him as punishment. The man looks back and sees that all his men have been defeated. He then despairs and asks if our hero will remove his ability again. With a smile, our protagonist makes an X with his fingers and confirms the punishment. The sect leader freaks out, lamenting that he messed with the wrong person. The scene cuts to an explosion at the gambling den, which is completely destroyed. With Jujiel as a guide, our hero asks where he should go now. And on that day, the Black Earth branch sect met its ruin in Hubei. Meanwhile, at the Sacred Hand Manor, young Jin Yeren seems worried. She then wonders where her brother Jin So went in the middle of the chaos. Suddenly, the boy appears running and shouting his sister's name. With a huge smile, young So tells his sister what he just did. He then reveals that they have finally paid off all their debts. Yeren thinks he's dreaming, but the boy tells her everything that happened. The young woman is shocked by the news and can't believe it's true. The boy then says they are free, and that it was all thanks to our hero. Yeren then says she's happy, and that they owe a lot to our protagonist. However, she doesn't seem very happy about the situation, and looks at her brother seriously. The young woman scolds him for trying to pay the debt with gambling and forbids him from going back there. The boy is confused and asks if the method they used is that important. The girl then says that a person who doesn't walk the righteous path hits a wall. He then gets angry and says she would have been taken if it weren't for the gambling. But the young woman stands firm and says a doctor must follow the right path. The boy then calls her stubborn for not accepting their help, and says he did his best for her, but she can only see what she needs to scold. The young man also says that if they did things her way, they would be stuck. With a sign in his hand, he wonders if this is really for him, and says he learned a lot from our hero and doesn't want to live like his sister, because he wants to live his own life and not follow others' rules. The scene then cuts to the Great Hanlim Institute of the Pine Forest, and Scholar Mun Yuan welcomes someone who has just arrived. And so the older brother, Sanho, arrives at the Hanlim Institute with the beggar Jang Il and Tao. Inside, Scholar Mun Yuan welcomes them and says that since he's our hero's brother, he is an important guest. Sanho then apologizes for anything Yanho might have done, but the old man just wants to know if he's looking for him. Taking the chance, the scholar asks if he can say something very important, because he wants to talk about the great potential our protagonist has hidden. The old man then warns that this potential cannot be restrained, and that trying to hold his brother back will only hurt him. Therefore, he says the best thing to do is simply let him be free, because only then will he one day become a horse running free across the plains. Sanho then thanks him for the consideration, and says he will think about the advice he received. After the conversation, the two say their goodbyes and continue on their way through the forest. However, the older brother notices that the beggar has a very sore look on his face. He then asks what it was like when Jang Il first saw his younger brother. The beggar then explodes, saying he only treated our hero well because of him, and that the boy is lazy and more cunning than a politician. He continues cursing our protagonist but soon realizes he's said too much and shuts up. And with a thoughtful expression, Sanho reflects on what he just heard from the beggar. Sanho then reflects that normal people can't see Yanho's talent, and he realizes that his brother has changed a lot since he was just a lazy kid. Meanwhile, our hero finally wakes up and wonders how long he slept. He also complains about the training in his dream and feeling the pain as if it were real life. Suddenly, the young Jin Yeren thanks him, saying what he did was greater than anything. Our protagonist freaks out and tells her to get up, not understanding the reason for all this. She then asks for a favor, and our boy becomes suspicious of the sudden request. With a serious look, our hero asks what this favor she wants so badly is. The favor is for him to make young So change his mind about something important, because he needs to inherit the Sacred Hand Manor, but is currently shaken. Our boy doesn't understand the difference and asks what is more important. After all, he even questions if it's necessary to choose between one thing or the other. The young woman then reveals that the priority is the Sacred Hand Manor, because even if he becomes a great doctor, their father's will won't be fulfilled. But if the manor is revived, they will have the chance to have a doctor in the future. Our hero then understands what the young woman means and agrees that the priority is to revive the manor. For this to happen, the girl stands there, waiting for our boy's great solution. With a smile, he reveals that there is actually a very simple solution to their problem. Changing scenes at the House Sect branch, chaos has erupted once again. The leader, Gui Nang Nang, is furious and yells that she should have finished off the beggar Jang Il, because she is still very angry that he brought Sanho to that place. Suddenly, her servant Gongmu appears running and says they have a big problem. Frightened, he points to the new visitors who have just arrived. An older man then asks with authority if she is the one in charge there. Annoyed by the old man's audacity, the leader confirms that yes, it is her. The man then introduces himself as Wei Zhong'an, leaving everyone there shocked by the revelation. The leader freaks out upon recognizing the righteous and chivalrous swordsman, Wei Jiangen. Proudly, the old man says that since she knows him, he doesn't need to explain much. But his wife grabs him by the face and tells him to stop showing off, because they are looking for their son. The old man still tries to justify himself by saying he's famous, but his wife cuts him off. The leader Gai Nangnang is still shocked by the presence of our hero's father. With a cough, she tries to compose herself, and his wife, Han Sang, steps forward. The mother then explains that Yanho sent a letter from that place and asks for an explanation. The leader confirms it's about our hero, and the mother is relieved. With a smile, she reveals that our protagonist should have already arrived at the Sacred Hand Manor. The father then worries because the manor is a medical clan and wonders if he's injured. The leader reassures him, saying she hasn't heard anything about the boy's health. But the father finds it all very strange and is suspicious of the whole situation, because he knows his son is very lazy and wouldn't get in touch regularly. The leader panics, realizing she's said too much and the situation has gotten ugly. Furious, the father demands she answer, and the pressure mounts even more. Meanwhile, the reconstruction of the Sacred Hand Manor is completed quickly. The money they didn't have was obtained by looting the old sect building. And for having paid the debt, our hero threatens the young Jin So with a piece of paper. And the paper is a promissory note for 20 gold Nyang that the boy signed without reading. Young So freaks out because he thought it was a favor. But our hero reminds him that nothing is free. With a smile, our protagonist offers a payment plan of 1 gold Nyang per year. The doctor freaks out again because the debt will take 20 long years to pay off. Our hero then tells him to either sign it or pay the 20 gold Nyang on the spot. With no other choice, the boy signs what he calls a slave contract. So the young man leaves, muttering that he was tricked. And our hero says he solved everything. However, the pawnshop owner Hei Daebung asks why he did that. Our protagonist plays dumb and asks what he means. The man then says he's never seen a contract as stupid as that one. And he even asks why our hero is being so nice to the young doctor. Because the conditions are too good. And he would never be able to revive the manor in 20 years. Hei Daebung then says the manor isn't something our protagonist needs, and he agrees. Curious, he asks why our hero is helping if he won't gain anything from it. With a smile, our protagonist reveals that his reason is connections. Because although young, So will become a great doctor one day, and that will be useful. And when he revives the manor and becomes a great doctor, he can save many people. So our hero says he will believe in him and is just giving him an opportunity. Young So then realizes that our protagonist was being very considerate of him. With clenched fists, he realizes he was complaining without even knowing anything, and with new determination, the boy swears he will work hard to repay the trust. Hei Daebung then makes sure the young man has left, and our hero confirms he has. Suddenly, the two of them burst out laughing, and our boy says it's easy to trick a kid. The man then laughs and says our protagonist didn't even have to really trick him, and with an evil laugh, the two celebrate the success of their malicious plan. The scene cuts to the facade of the newly opened Sacred Hand Manor, and as manager, Hei Daebung quickly prepares to open for business. On opening day, the manor is full of people celebrating the event. The manager even announces that if the food runs out, they will compensate everyone. With so many guests, they even open up the patient rooms to accommodate everyone. And the young master of the manor, Jin So, prepares for his grand opening day. People then comment that the young doctor has the qualifications, but the manor will probably close down. Suddenly, someone shouts that an important guest is arriving, and everyone turns. An important man approaches, and everyone makes way for him to pass. With his servants, the Grand Administrator appears, and everyone bows in respect. Hei Daebung is shocked by the visit and bows immediately. The man then approaches, and the manager bows even lower in respect. The administrator then says he is very happy to see the manor rebuilt, and with a serious look, he asks if the young man there is the son of the former master. Young So nervously confirms and bows to the important man. With an official announcement, he acknowledges the reconstruction of the manor and wishes its success. The doctor then bows and promises to do his best for the people of the city. Everyone celebrates because the pride of Hubei City is finally back. The administrator also encourages them to visit the manor when they need help. Everyone celebrates the return of the Sacred Hand Manor, the best of all. But the young doctor seems worried and tries to get his father's attention. With a determined smile, the young doctor promises he will do very well. The administrator then asks if that was good enough, and our hero confirms it was. Our protagonist says it was perfect, and the man calls in the promise. With a book in hand, our boy confirms the promise but has one condition. Because he will keep a ledger of bribes to ensure he keeps his word. The administrator gets awkward but decides to leave, as there's nothing else to do. Our hero then says goodbye, and the man reflects on the whole situation. He knows that if those records fall into the hands of an inspector, he's toast. The next morning, the young doctor is startled by the huge line of patients. Hey Daebung then tells everyone to get in line, as there's room for all. The manager then smells something strange in the air, and the boy is confused. With shining eyes, he reveals that it's the smell of money, and that they're going to take everything from them. Meanwhile, at the Nature's Hand Manor, the boss complains about the lack of patience. One of his men explains that a new Sacred Hand Manor has opened. The boss then gets angry and wonders what this so-called Sacred Hand Manor is. The boss flips out because the manor shouldn't exist without the former master, and he doubts the young doctor has the money to reopen the place. He then complains that everything was going well after leading the old master into gambling. His servant gets worried and says that if everything goes wrong, the blame will fall on him. Unsure of what to do, the man says they've already established the place. The boss then says that if they can't untie the knot, they should just cut it. The servant is shocked by the idea, and the boss says it's a great pity. He then observes our hero on the roof and the young doctor in his room, and with a sinister smile, he says it would be unfortunate if he were to pass away. With a needle in hand, the young doctor seems to be preparing for something. The boss then repeats his evil plan to get rid of the young doctor, and he adds to prepare a generous sum for the funeral. The scene cuts to the Miram Alliance and its leader, Jun Guximachian-se. He then asks what happened, and the divine strategist reveals some news. It turns out the bandits of the Green Forest have made contact with the Iron Blood sect. The Miram Alliance leader then deduces that they should assume the two groups are already working together, and this only adds to the chaos in the martial world, which is already on the verge of exploding at any moment. Because the demonic and orthodox factions are always at war, and entire sects disappear. The leader then wants to know about the Celestial Medical Union, but the strategist says they haven't made a move. However, he recalls that the Iron Blood sect has friendly relations with the Union. The leader is worried because if they get involved in the fight, a lot of blood will be spilled. The strategist then reveals that Pang Dejuk only escaped with Wei Yanho's help. The leader is shocked to hear the name of the second son of the Wei clan, who has reappeared, and with a smile, he says who else could raise a child like our hero. With a smile, he reflects that his friend has been busy raising a dragon for the past few years. The strategist then reveals that the eldest son, Sanho, is also very strong. The leader celebrates because in 10 years, the Wei clan could become #1 in the world. And with a laugh, he says a dragon has emerged from the Wei family, and that our hero will surely do great things for the martial world. But in the meantime, our protagonist is sleeping and wakes up startled by something. Our hero wakes up and asks where young So is, and the manager says he fainted. Yanho then calls in the bet he made with the manager and says it's time to pay up. Outside, a group of mysterious assassins invades the manor during the night. With a smile, our boy says he warned them they would come, and the manager calls him impatient. Our protagonist then grabs a broom and says that's enough to take care of them. With a blue aura, he prepares to face the assassins who have invaded the place. And with a quick spin, he shows that the broom is more than enough for the fight. With a sinister smile, our hero yells for them to prepare for the worst. Meanwhile, at the Housek branch, the commotion continues with our boy's parents. The father, Wei Junghan, says his son is lazy and wants to know how the leader knows so much. Gai Nangnang panics, realizing she said too much and the situation has turned ugly. The father then demands a straight answer, and the pressure in the room mounts even more. Suddenly, the old man flips out and fakes a heart attack to pressure her, but his wife grabs him by the ear and scolds him for interfering in the conversation. The mother then says it's obvious why an adult woman would track an adult man. The father then confirms that Yanho is in Hubei and asks for the manor's location. The leader Guy says it's not difficult, but she doesn't know how long he'll stay there. She then offers an informant to follow his movements and help them. The father then reflects that she is an extraordinary and very decisive young woman, and with a serious look, he promises to repay the debt in the future if it's fair. The mother then calls her husband Dents and asks who this informant is. The old man starts asking questions about the young woman's age and parents, and with a tap on the shoulder, he asks if she can handle the journey to Hubei. The leader then freaks out at the old man's audacity and glares at him angrily. But in the end, she decides to wait a bit before making a decision, because she knows that with the three brothers, the Wei clan could become the strongest in the world. With a smile, the mother says she'll get ready quickly and asks them to wait. The leader says her goodbyes, and the father remains there, thoughtful about the whole situation. He then comments that the young woman didn't seem to have feelings for our hero, but the mother scolds him and asks if he thinks Yanho can get married on his own. The father then says that now that he's back, they need to prepare for the wedding. The mother says that even without affection, they might fall in love while traveling together. The The father is terrified by the idea and says that women are scary. Meanwhile, at the manor, life goes on with a lot of hustle and bustle. Our hero eats while the young doctor complains of body aches. The boy even asks if he can eat with someone dying of exhaustion. Our protagonist then says that by seeing many patients, he will develop quickly. He also says that with this, Hubie will be swallowed by the sacred hand manor. Suddenly, a servant enters and announces that a certain woman has come to visit him. Young So is confused and doesn't know who the visitor could be, and to everyone's surprise his sister Jin Yeren appears with a serious look. The young man then stammers upon seeing his sister and calls her name awkwardly. The girl then asks what all of this is that's happening here. Without further ado, she tells her brother to stop immediately and come home. The young woman then asks what all of this is that's happening here. She then scolds him for trading medicine for profit and calls him a merchant. With a serious look, she tells him to pack his bags and come home at once. The young man then asks if doctors aren't human and why they need to live in poverty. The girl scolds him for forgetting the teachings of their ancestors, but he retorts. He says their ancestors lived in huge houses and made money from medicine. With a furious shout, the young man says she's the one who doesn't understand, not him. He also says he's not arrogant and that if he follows her wishes, the manor will never be known. The boy tells her to go her own way because he is not a puppet, and with a final shout, he says he will make the manor known in his own way. Our hero then observes the scene and scoffs at the tone the boy used with his sister. The young woman then turns with a deathly glare towards our protagonist, and starts chasing him with all her anger, and our hero doesn't understand. With eyes full of hatred, she says this is all our boy's fault. Meanwhile, Pang Dejuk travels through the night in search of our hero, and with an order, he tells them to erase all their traces at the manor. The servant then says it's a waste to throw away the foundation they've built. Dejuk agrees but says it's better than losing everything by clinging to it, because the problem is that an unidentified kid intervened and ruined everything, and since a master of that caliber is not alone, it's better to wash their hands of it. The young man then says that wasting time is the biggest problem and wants to know who our hero is. So he decides to send a letter to the main house and warn them about the threat. A sake bottle then floats by in the water and reaches the young Yeren. She then drinks alone and our hero appears, saying that's bad for the stomach. He then appears with a worried look, hoping her anger has passed. With a smile, our protagonist asks for a cup, and the young woman pours him one. The drink is served, and the two stay there, enjoying the quiet night. Suddenly, the bottle floats by again, and young Yeren picks it up with a sad look. She then repeats that drinking alone is bad for the stomach, as if talking to herself. Our hero then appears and says he hopes her anger has calmed down. The young woman then repeats that drinking alone is bad for the stomach, as if talking to herself. With a smile, our protagonist asks for a cup, and the young woman glares at him angrily. He then says that drinking alone is poison, but she says seeing his face is worse. With a typical solution, our hero suggests lying down so she doesn't have to see his face. Suddenly, the young woman bows and apologizes, leaving our boy confused. She then explains that he did so much for them, but she got angry and was ashamed. With a sigh, the young woman reflects that nothing is easy, not the manor nor her brother. Our protagonist then says that honestly, he doesn't understand her concern. He also remembers that his master taught him to conquer what you want, and that the one who is thirsty is the one who digs the well to drink the water. The young woman then asks if he means she should raise the manor. Our hero then says that being the heir doesn't mean being the only one to raise the family. The girl says she's a woman, but our boy sees no problem with that. He even asks if there's a law that says only men can raise the family, and with a serious look, he says that doesn't matter when it comes to saving people. The young woman then asks if he thinks she can do it, but our hero says nobody knows. Our hero then says she's still obsessed with her brother, and that the two things are different, and if she wants to rebuild the manor with the ideal doctor she imagines, then she needs to make it happen herself and not depend on others. The young woman then asks why he's helping her, and our boy doesn't answer. She then says he's a very strange person, and our hero confirms it. Our protagonist then says that people who don't make a move never achieve anything. The girl asks if that's self-deprecation, and our hero confirms with a smile. He also says he's satisfied with the life he leads and has no great desires, and that he's happier than her because he's doing what he wants, even if he hates his master. With a smile, the young woman says his master seems to be a very good person. The scene then cuts to the roof with the two enjoying the night and the full moon. Our hero says maybe his master is good, and the moon continues to shine in the sky. The next morning, the manor is quiet and peaceful, with everyone resting. Suddenly, our hero asks for a cup, and a mysterious man appears to serve him, and to everyone's surprise, the man is the mad dog of the beggars sect. Our hero then asks how the beggar found him, and if he has any connection to the Hao clan. Taking a sip, He complains that it's his second cup, and he still doesn't understand the bitter taste. The mad dog ignores the question and wants to know why our protagonist did that in the game. Because he is absolutely certain that our boy lost on purpose in the first rounds. The beggar finds the story interesting and asks if Bai also lost on purpose at the end. He also says that with his skill, our hero could have rolled all sixes but didn't. The mad dog says that normally, our boy should have lost and wants to know why. Without answering, the beggar asks what he thinks real gambling is. And with a purple aura, he explains that gambling is a contest where everyone uses their skills. But he complains that nowadays, useless things like plans and strategies interfere with everything. With a serious look, the mad dog states that he never lost on purpose and that his luck simply ran out. He also says that thanks to this, the people who ruined themselves at the casino will disappear. Our hero then comments that he lost everything, but the beggar doesn't seem to care. Because for him, what matters is the container, and if the cup is empty, you just fill it up again. Our protagonist then reflects that the king of gambling lives in a world where winning is everything and nothing. Our hero then says it's strange, and the beggar asks what he means. He explains that for the past few days, he's been with the kindest people in the world. But he didn't feel anything from them, because they walked a path he couldn't imagine. And talking with the beggar made him feel like he was breaking a mold. The mad dog then says that people are like that, and that they feel different things, and that life is about betting on the path each one has chosen to follow. The scene cuts to the Sacred Hand Manor, which seems very quiet. Suddenly, the manager Hei Daebung freaks out and shouts for our protagonist. He then shows a letter to the young doctor and says our hero has left. In the letter, our boy says he felt he would be stuck there forever, and that he doesn't think he'll be much help to the manor, so he decided to leave. He also tells them to manage the clinic well and not be greedy, and that he believes young So will become a great doctor in the future. With a final warning, our hero says to save the profits because he'll be back. The young doctor then tells the manager to send people to look for our boy. The young doctor then says that with our hero's personality, he can't have gone far. Meanwhile, young Yeren is in a remote place making a house call. With a smile, she leaves an ointment for the patient, and our hero watches her. He then comments that she is truly unstoppable, and the young woman doesn't understand. Suddenly, our protagonist appears and says he wants to see the medicine's effectiveness. With a waterfall in the background, the two talk about the young woman's dedication. Our hero scolds her for making free house calls and spending so much money. He even asks why she goes so far and walks such a thorny path. The young woman then says it's not a sense of duty and reminds him of his words. With a smile, she says that people who only think never achieve anything. Our boy then hands her the items she pawned and says they didn't seem important. The young woman is shocked and wonders if he was the one who returned the necklace last time. With a smile, our protagonist asks her to promise not to sell them again. With tears in her eyes, the young woman agrees and promises she won't sell them anymore. Our hero then says goodbye and says he's already leaving that place. He then explains that because of his master's wish, he can't stay in one place for too long. The young woman then stops him and offers him a farewell gift. Our hero ties his hair with the ribbon she gave him and seems quite satisfied. With a smile, he says he'll make good use of the gift, and the young woman says goodbye. The girl then thanks him for everything, and our protagonist reflects on her decision. He then realizes that in the end, she decided to walk her own difficult path, and with each following their own destiny, our hero decides he also needs to get going. But he soon freaks out and complains that he doesn't want to walk because his legs hurt. Suddenly, he sees a cart and an opportunity to get a ride. All beat up on the ground, he stops the cart, and the man doesn't understand a thing. Our protagonist then begs, please, and the man gets even more confused. With a final effort, our boy asks for a ride just once. The man finds him strange but agrees to take him where he's going. Our hero then thanks him and jumps onto the cart, all excited about the ride. And as expected, he lies down and celebrates the automatic transport. With a smile, our hero enjoys the ride and relaxes on the cart. Suddenly, the man wakes him up and says he needs to get up. He then explains that they need to part ways at that point on the road. Our protagonist wakes up and complains that he overslept on the trip. He also says he doesn't mind sleeping in a tree or digging a hole. With a smile, our boy thanks him for the ride and says goodbye to the man. The cart then moves away, and our hero is left alone in the middle of the road. He then continues on his way, and the old man reflects on the encounter. The man finds him an interesting kid and watches him from afar. Suddenly, a mysterious man approaches and calls him Scarlet Moon. The man bows in respect and seems to be in the old man's service. The old man then grabs him by the face and glares at him with a deadly look, and reveals that our hero noticed the hidden man's presence. The man is shocked, as he didn't expect our boy to notice him. With an order, the old man tells him to investigate our hero and find out everything. Alone in the forest, our hero decides he'll just sleep there. Suddenly, a mysterious young woman appears running and says she can't take it anymore. She then looks for a place to hide but doesn't know where to go. With a keen eye, she spots a tree and decides to hide there. With a quick jump, the girl climbs the tree and hides in the branches. She then tries to calm down and control her breathing so as not to be discovered. But she feels that something is wrong, as if someone is there with her. The young woman then looks to the side and is shocked by what she finds. And to her surprise, she sees our protagonist sleeping, tied to the tree. The girl tries not to scream, but our hero wakes up, and the two are face to face. Our boy then tries to speak, but the young woman covers his mouth immediately. With a finger to her lips, she tells him to be quiet so they won't be discovered. And she explains that she's being chased and he'll be in danger too if they're caught. Outside, one of the pursuers complains that he can't find any trace of her. The leader then orders his men to find her no matter what. Our hero then asks if the pursuers have left, and the young woman lets him go. With a serious look, our boy tells her to move because she's too heavy. The young woman gets annoyed and pushes him out of the tree without a second thought. Our protagonist falls to the ground and complains that he was sleeping so well. The girl then apologizes, and our hero warns her that staying there is dangerous. He also says she shouldn't be seen by those people at all. With a serious look, he tells her to follow him because he'll help her escape. The two then run through the forest to escape the young woman's pursuers. Along the way, she introduces herself as Simon Dayan of the Simon clan. Our hero also introduces himself, saying his name is Wee Yeonho. The young woman reveals she's on a mission from the Orthodox Miram Alliance, and our boy scoffs. She then says she can't prove it now, but he will believe her. Our protagonist then asks who the men chasing her are. The girl tells him to lower his voice, and our hero insists on knowing who they are. And with a serious look, she reveals they are from the demonic cult. Our hero then says he knows they are remnant members and that this is bad. The young woman freaks out, saying she already told him that, but our boy ignores her. With a smile, he says that's not what he meant by bad. Suddenly, our protagonist shouts for them to come out, because he knows who they are. And to the young woman's surprise, the cult members appear and ask how he knew. With a serious look, they reveal themselves, and the girl is shocked to see them. Our hero then faces them, and the young woman freaks out because it's really them. Their leader then asks if our boy is from the Orthodox Miram Alliance. Our protagonist denies it, and says he doesn't want to get involved with them at all. The man then says he'll believe him, and that he can talk to the king of the underworld. The young woman then stops him and tries to prevent them from hurting him in any way. She even shouts that he knows nothing and tells them to let him go. And in return, she promises to tell everything she knows about the mission she was on. The leader then says it's not a bad offer, but our hero interrupts him, because he knows those guys are from the demonic cult, and that he can't trust them. The cult members then wonder if our hero has lost his mind from the situation. But our boy says that now that he knows they're from the cult, he's not leaving, because his father always taught him to finish off cult members if he saw them. The young Daeon asks who his father is, and our hero answers without hesitation. With a powerful aura, he reveals that his father is Wee Jong-an of the Wee clan. The cult leader freaks out upon hearing the name, and is shocked by the revelation. With a look of hatred, he calls him the son of the righteous swordsman and gets ready. And with a shout, he tells our protagonist to blame his father for his demise. The young woman gets worried and says our hero is in danger because of her. But with a serious look, our boy blocks the attack with ease. The cult members can't believe their eyes, and our hero prepares himself. He then says he doesn't consider himself the best son, but he listens to his father. And with his blue energy sword, he prepares for the great battle. With a powerful attack, he sends one of the men flying away. And he warns them to get ready, because his sword is sharper than his father's. Far away, two mysterious men watch the battle under the moonlight. With a serious look, one of them sees our hero and the young Dayan fighting. One of the men calls him Blue Moon and asks if he is the swordsman's second son. The old man then says he understands but doesn't know why there's no news of him. He also deduces that our protagonist is somehow connected to the demon, and that something must have happened for him to be so strong for his age. One of the cult members freaks out seeing our hero's strength in battle. With his blue sword, he prepares to show his true power. The young Dayan is shocked and doesn't understand what's happening. She then realizes he's not an idiot and is much stronger. Our protagonist then holds his breath and prepares for the attack. With a powerful blow, he faces the cult man with his sword. And with a quick spin, he shows his skill and strength in combat. With a final attack, he shows his blue energy and prepares to win. And with a burst of power, he defeats the enemy with ease. With a blast of purple energy, the cult man attacks our hero with everything he's got. But he's shocked to realize that our protagonist has simply vanished. With a quick leap, our boy appears behind him and prepares to strike. and with a powerful blow, he hits him and sends him flying with his energy. The battle continues and our hero faces several enemies at once. With a serious look, he prepares for the next wave of attacks, and with his purple energy sword, he defeats everyone surrounding him. With a powerful kick, he shows his strength and skill in the fight. In seconds, all the cult members are defeated by our boy. With his blue energy sword, he prepares for the final blow, and with a precise attack, he defeats the last remaining enemies. The leader then cries out in pain upon seeing all his men defeated. With a red energy, he prepares for a last desperate attack, and with a shout, he tells our hero to prepare for the worst to come. With a bizarre transformation, he fills himself with power and faces our protagonist. With purple energy, the cult members prepare for the final attack. Our hero then scoffs, saying they got up even with their tendons cut. The leader then says his father didn't tell him everything about the demonic cult. But our boy says it's fine, and that he'll just have to cut off the whole leg. With a shout, the man orders his men to attack with everything they have. Our hero then remembers his master's teachings to be cool-headed. The battle rages on, and the cult members attack our protagonist with everything. But he dodges the attacks with ease and prepares for a counter-attack. With his blue energy sword, he defeats all the enemies around him. The leader then attacks him with a powerful blow, but our hero is unfazed. With his purple sword, he scoffs, saying not even a turtle would get hit by that. Our boy then sighs and prepares for the final attack against him. With his blue energy sword, he warns that he won't block the strike, and with a powerful technique, he prepares to redirect the attack. With a quick spin, he goes against the flow and shows his true power. The leader and his men are shocked, not expecting the attack. And with the touch of the wave, the calamity of the sword returns to his hand. The energy explosion destroys everything around and sends the men flying. Far away, the two mysterious men watch the scene and the explosion. With a serious look, the old man watches the battle, unshaken by anything. The crater left by the attack shows our protagonist's absurd power. The cult leader then realizes he's the only one left and is terrified. He then tries to end his own life, but our hero stops him immediately. Our protagonist asks if he should keep him alive, and the young woman says yes. The man then tries to off himself again, but our boy stops him once more. Furious, our hero asks how he dares try to do that in front of him, and with a punch, he stops him from taking his own life in battle. The tooth with the poison pill then falls to the ground, and our hero picks it up. With a smile, he realizes his father's stories were useful. The young Daeon then stands there, watching the scene without saying anything. The young Daeon then realizes that our hero is a martial arts master. Suddenly, the beggar Jangil asks if our protagonist has already left. Hei Daebung then confirms it and says a beggar was looking for him. The older brother, Sanho, then approaches and the beggar gets awkward. The manager then asks who they are, and they say they aren't suspicious. Sanho then introduces himself, saying he is Yanho's older brother. The manager freaks out upon hearing the news and can't believe it's true. Without further ado, he runs to call the manor's master to talk. The beggar then asks if the manor's master got into some trouble. Suddenly, a cart approaches, and the beggar becomes suspicious. He then freaks out upon recognizing the cart as being from the Hao sect. Sanho asks how he knows, and the beggar says the driver is from the sect. The older brother then deduces that the sect leader is a snake and followed them. The cart then stops, and the beggar and Sanho watch intently. From inside the cart, someone gets out and prepares to enter the manor. And to everyone's surprise, the person who gets out of the cart is our hero's father. The older brother Sanho freaks out upon seeing his father and is left speechless. And with his wife by his side, the old man recognizes his eldest son Sanho.